All right, start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. And this is a Week 12 review show. I was on a bit of a break, wasn't able to do one last week, and so I'm going to quickly recap because there were a lot of storylines that happened last week, and it works out because the EPL is now going on a little bit of a break. We have another international window, and that means next episode will be USMNT focused show. I think we played Trinidad and Tobago, and I think they mentioned how it's a Nations League kind of qualifier, but if we win that game, I believe that will clinch our spot in the Copa America that happens next summer. We officially haven't actually qualified for that yet, so pretty big game, and we're going to be a big game to see how we do. We're not going to have Tim Weah, I believe. There are a couple of stars that are supposed to be out due to some injuries, so big chance for Berhalter to again, maybe calm some nerves. We'll have to see. So, anyways, I'll be doing that show next week. But leading off with last week, so Luton and Liverpool drew. This came after I basically kind of called Luton basically bad. The show prior to this, so I guess I kind of deserve it. Darwin Núñez had a number of chances, or at least a number of half chances. There really was only like one kind of bad miss. I think everyone's saying it now. Solid wasn't really on his game either. It is what it is. Liverpool, dominated the game. I think they had something like 25 shots, but they weren't able to necessarily make anything count. And then they basically conceded off a corner. It was their own corner kick, and they allowed Luton to counter on them. It's a really good ball by Kabore, who gets down on the wing, and he's able to do square something into the free runner, and good finish. So it is what it is. It was awesome though to see Luis Diaz come on in the second half, or like late in the game, and to be the hero to rescue a point. So it wasn't all bad in that game, and it came out in the midweek, right even before their game on Thursday versus Toulouse, that his dad had been returned to him. So, I mean, you can only imagine what kind of hell that's been going through his mind the last few weeks. So, he got his mom back, got hhis dad back, and so great to see. And he rescued that point with all those thoughts kind of going in his head. So that was pretty awesome to see. And you even saw a shirt with a message to his dad. But that wasn't the only surprise. We saw Brighton and Everton draw. Brighton only had 7 shots, so that was a bit of the surprise to me. 80% of the ball. That's kind of what you expect. But they were only able to 1-1 draw, and they were only able to get 7 shots in that game. And then probably one that was just as surprising as Liverpool was Nottingham Forest beat Aston Villa 2-0. Pretty comfortable even. And then Sheffield is the first of the promoted teams to get a win, but it didn't come without controversy, which I'll get into. But a big theme of the entire week was VAR, controversy, I guess you can say. Is leading off with really Newcastle and Arsenal, but also Wolves and Sheffield. So that kind of goes into what I was saying. And then Spurs and Chelsea had a bit of a cluster mess of a game on Monday. So just getting on with Newcastle. Newcastle were the beneficiaries on what was mostly a pretty fairly even game. It was kind of a muck game. There were a bunch of yellow cards. Weren't a lot of shots in the game. I think it actually was under 1 for both teams, maybe even under like 0.6 for both teams. It was very non-even, I guess you can say. I guess we can maybe say competitive. And then Newcastle were able to score on what looked like there were like 4 different ways for this goal to be disallowed, and it wasn't. I mean, the ball looked out of play, but I guess because of the on-field decision, they didn't have a camera angle to reverse it. Though we saw them take away a goal in Man United versus Brighton a couple of weeks ago when Rashford looked like he saved the ball from going out of bounds. So that was a little bit surprising. Then it looked like there was a foul on Gabriel. I even heard something yesterday where they aired the VAR the video of the thing in real time, where the assistant referee, the assistant VAR person, is speaking into the referee's ear basically saying, you do see the hands on the back, but he doesn't think that that's enough for a foul. I mean, fair play, I guess that's subjective, but it looked like there was maybe a handball as well. It looked like a ball like hit Joe Linton's hand. And you heard the explanation for that too. They said, well, because Joe Linton isn't the one that actually scores it, it's okay. I thought that was a little bit surprising too. But maybe that is the rule. Maybe I just don't know the rules. Then again, it seems like no one knows the rules, so that I think that's fair. Then it looked like there could have been an offside because David Rea was kind of out. So it's not just the one defender; it's the last two. Usually, it's easy because you have the goalkeeper. It's easy to just go to the last defender. But with Rea being out, it made it kind of interesting, and it seemed like they didn't have a camera angle to see where the ball was. So that I understand, I guess. So I look at it more of Arsenal were just really unlucky one to have the on-field decision being a goal. If it hadn't been a goal, they probably wouldn't have had enough to reverse it. But the other thing too is it just seems they don't really have great camera angles. Even at this level of the sport, even like the technology era that we're in, I thought that was quite surprising and quite telling. And also, to kind of not really focus too much on VAR. Uh, but in that little video that the league put out that has like Howard Webb speaking, uh, you see in real time how they actually do offsides, and it is far worse than I thought. Because when you actually hear them speaking about it and doing it in real time, how they're doing the lines, they blow up the picture, and so the resolution isn't as clear cut as you would want, and they're just guessing. They're guessing where they think maybe like the last part of a body or shoulder is, and it is stunning how just some of these calls are coming down to centimeters or millimeters. It is not the way to do this, and either scrap it entirely or do automated offsides because this is trash. To I mean, for lack of a better word, and I mean, you've been seeing the lines drawn, or you've seen like the finished art, a product when the lines are drawn. But this video is actually showing you in real time how these lines are drawn, and it is again, it is a disaster, to be honest. But at least at least we're seeing it now. At least there's a little transparency there. But I think that is, I mean, it's they have automated for big things. I think they have it for Champions League knockouts. I think they have it for any FIFA sanctioned tournament events. I don't understand why they don't have it in quote unquote the biggest league. I think you can call it the biggest league in the world, considering all the money that's been flowing in over the last decade. Yeah, that's kind of the little rant, I guess I'll say there. There'll be more of that later on. To get to the two Manchester clubs, two Manchester stories, essentially. Man City bullied Bournemouth. Alicia Jeremy Doku on them. I think he was responsible for 4 goals. I think he had 3. I think he had a hat trick of assists. I think he had a goal himself, as well as Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva scored a goal towards the end. I think it was like the 6th goal, so his game was already over. Where Pep even said, "This is something Messi would have done." So that just kind of shows you what Pep saw out of the. It was a really nice goal, to be fair. Like a nice little dribble, nice little finish. Uh, but the interesting thing was Holland didn't score in that game. He was hooked after 45 minutes. To be fair to him, Pep said he was carrying something, so that made sense. But that was I just thought that was kind of interesting to see. And then Man United had their worst performance of the season in the midweek before this. So this was a little ways ago versus Newcastle in the cup game. It was versus Newcastle's quote unquote B squad. And they were absolutely trounced. I think they lost 3-0 in that game as well. And just they didn't even look competitive in that game. And then versus Fulham, it looked like it was going to be kind of a similar thing. Where I thought Fulham thoroughly outplayed them. I think Fulham had something like 18 shots, and Man United had maybe 8 or 10. But Bruno was their hero at the end of the day, and he had a really good goal to end, though it was at Fulham's expense, but Fulham's own doing. A number of times to clear this, Paulinho with a couple bad clearances, Tim Ream not necessarily covering himself in glory here, and they weren't able to clear a ball, and it allowed Bruno to get the shot onto his I guess favorite foot, or he hits it with his left, so maybe not even his favorite foot. He does like a nice little cutback to fake a shot and gets it onto his foot, and he's able to squeeze it into the corner. to beat Leno. But and so that was an interesting kind of moment because the announcers and everyone after that was like, "Oh, can this maybe be something where to galvanize the squad? Maybe they can turn things around." And then they played their game versus Copenhagen, and well, um, they were cruising. They were absolutely cruising to a 2-goal lead. It looked flying out of the gates. They looked as good as they had maybe looked all season, to be honest. And then the Rashford red card happened, and it's absolutely the wrong call. Man United fans are right to gripe about this. Or let's see, was it the wrong call? It was. I'm trying to think. I think maybe that wasn't. Now that I'm trying to think about it, to be honest, because since I wrote this, we saw a number of these kind of incidents over the weekend where these kind of calls were upheld. Maybe I should say it's not necessarily the wrong call. It's unlucky because Rashford isn't meaning to do this, but he does step. Basically, he's trying to shield the ball. And he basically gets the a player's ankle instead, and it is high. And basically, it's cleats to the higher part of the ankle or shin area. Uh, but I think the main point was it was still a 2-0 game and we have seen a lot of teams manage this out this season. Spurs were able to handle playing down a man versus Luton. Not a Champions League game, but still, Liverpool were able to handle Newcastle. That's probably a better example of this. Man United conceded 4 goals to this by comparison. What was interesting to me is uh, Raphael Varane did not start the game, but Johnny Evans, had to go off. So Varane actually came on and that is when they actually conceded all these goals. And they go on to lose in the dying minutes to a 17-year-old named Rooney. So that was interesting, but it is weird because before the red, I did feel like there was something there. Rashford on the right was very interesting. It was allowed Garnacho to play. Uh, McTominay and Ericsson were the pivot. That wasn't really what anyone would have expected, but it was allowing McTominay to make those forward runs, which he likes doing. The connection between Rashford and Wan-Bissaka, I thought was pretty good. That's what led to the first goal, and Man United were countering pretty well. Yeah, they were able to get Copenhagen to turn it over, and we're leading off with the counter. They get the second goal because Garnacho, Hoyland is able to feed Garnacho in, and Garnacho takes the shot on. It's saved, but then Hoyland's there for the tap in. So we were wondering, what exactly what this was going to be. Was it maybe the new United, and instead we got a little bit more of the old. Uh, and I can't blame Maguire and Evans for this. Which is Varane came on, but it was the way that they capitulated a little bit in the second half. It's kind of the same old stuff. They completely collapsed defensively. And just it's kind of the same story. They're not picking up runners. I think for the fourth goal, they a ball is crossed in, and all three players just go to where the ball is, leaving completely this Rooney guy completely wide open. And I think even before that, for the third and fourth goal, Man United have the ball and it's their own doing. Varane has a really poor pass in one of them, and I think Amrabat, who came on, had a poor pass. So, or it's McTominay. McTominay just booted the ball away and gave it away. McTominay, had a mistake for the second goal. That basically led to before the handball. McTominay just kind of booted the ball away and gave it away. So I thought it was weirdly enough a good game to sum up Man United this year. Moments of brilliance, but lacked the discipline to manage the game out and kill the game out. And the PK is harsh, but it is what it is. Three goals featured the theme of not tracking potential runners into the box. So McTominay and Bruno for the first, Dallo for the third, and then take your pick for the fourth. Three players collapsed on the player before Rooney, and then we get on to Monday. Chelsea and Spurs was as bonkers and chaotic a game I think I've watched in years. For not just for clubs, but really any sport. 5 goals I think were called back. Even 2 red cards. I do think those were the right call, but the offsides called to take away a few of the goals I thought was ridiculous on a number of them. The Spurs second goal I didn't think was really offsides. The Nicholas Jackson when he jumps over the ball to deny Casado, I I thought that was ridiculous as well. It didn't matter because it was a PK rewarded and they were able to score anyways. But still, it's just like there's no reason to niggle on on margins this small. If you again, maybe I'm just radical on the opinion that if you can't see it to the naked eye, he's onside, advantage to the attacker. Why can't you just do that? I don't get it. Uh, but here in this game, I mean, Tottenham. What's weird, Tottenham just flew out of the gates. It looked like they were going to win this game, like I don't know, 5-0. Chelsea were sixes and sevens, as they say, for the first 15 minutes. They scored a goal off a deflection shot, and then they had a wonderful move with Brendan Johnson squaring a pass to Son, for a tap in, only for the Lions to rule it out. Everything was just going, absolutely the way you would have wanted to, and then Udogi made a rash challenge, and he could have been sent off for this. To be honest, I thought it was very similar to the Curtis Jones tackle, and that challenge just woke up Chelsea, and it's simultaneously Tottenham combusted. Because after that, Chelsea did get back into the contest. Sterling scored a goal. I think it is chopped off for like a handball. And that was the right call, but it's more unlucky. Like that could have hit, easily could have hit Sterling's chest, and it wouldn't have mattered. And so it was just inches from that. So that was more just unluck or misfortune than anything else. And then later on, we're gifted the PK, and then the red card setting off really did change everything. And Romero does something similar to Udogi. So you got lucky before. I don't understand why Romero is going to ground like this hard to win the ball. It's a very weird tackle, to be honest. And yeah, this is what they're doing. It doesn't matter if you win the ball first. If you follow through and you have your cleats high up and they go into someone's higher on the leg, it looks like you're going to get sent off every single time. And frankly, I'll get to it later. I was surprised Endo wasn't sent off in the Liverpool game. So that's the first send it off, and then Udogi gets a second yellow in the second half, where it looked like for the most part Spurs had done well to play down a man. They were actually even able to uh, to uh, make up a couple of attacks, and then the one time they lost the ball and they weren't able to quickly win it back, Chelsea had acres of space and they were able to do a nice little counter. Vicario came out. He did a really good job sweeper keeping, but the loose ball nearly found Sterling, and Udogi went to ground to try to win it back, and it's rash. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do. He gets none of the ball. I think he even does it from behind. And yeah, clear as day for a second yellow. And that makes Spurs have to play down with 9 men. And Chelsea still struggled, to be honest. And it was a very interesting game because Tottenham were basically baiting Chelsea to play hopeful balls over the top, over their high line. Spurs were playing basically they weren't changing how they played. They were playing their basically they had their back line almost where the midway line is, in half field. And the goal basically was like, can Chelsea, time it where they can just, hit a ball over the top and get Jackson to get to be in front of the Eric Dyer and whoever the other center back was. It might have been Ben Davies. And weirdly enough, Chelsea were really struggling with that, and there was a lot of talk online about this. I think Jamie Carragher called the tactic suicide football. And then in the end, maybe people feel justified because they did chip in 4 goals at the very end, though it took until like the 88th minute for it to happen. And the thing that I thought was interesting was finally Chelsea figured out that stop doing these balls to Jackson over the top, where Vicario can maybe get it doing sweeper keeping. Target the wings. And they finally were able to, play the ball a little bit, where they were patient enough, and then they were finally able to find Sterling wide open on the wing, and that's basically where the first goal came from. And then from there, they were able to get a couple others, kind of doing something similar. But I think the interesting thing here was it did take them a while to figure this out, and two, even after Chelsea got the go ahead goal. Uh, Eric Dyer basically scored to make it a 2-2 game, and it's chopped off again for a shaky offsides. Betancourt, a couple minutes later, Spurs were able to get another late free kick. Betancourt nearly scored, from the free kick. Similar kind of, moment. And then they were able to get Son 1v1 with a keeper, and well, maybe it's not 1v1 with the keeper. They were able to get Son with a little bit of a breakaway, and he forced a really good Sanchez save. to go low to the ground because Son nearly scored to make it a 2-2 game, and so Chelsea fans had to sweat this out playing with 9 men. So there was a lot of fans that were wondering why didn't Spurs, play, sit in a box basically, because Liverpool made Spurs kind of do that. Liverpool were playing very very deep that second half, and Spurs were just doing cross after cross into them, and Liverpool were able to kind of somewhat live on the edge defensively. But it was different here. Spurs were with 9 men were still able to make Chelsea fans like sweat this out. So I don't necessarily know if the high line was necessarily the wrong tactic. One thing I will say is it was interesting to see Spurs still do a back four. So what they did was almost a 4-4-1. They had Son, being ahead, and the idea was to make sure you were able to still press Chelsea from being able to just have any time on the ball at all. They still wanted to give pressure on the ball. And one thing the tactic also did is by being able to play that high line, for the most part, they were able to take away the advantage of Chelsea having the extra numbers in midfield. So the tactic I don't think necessarily was wrong. I do think it was interesting to see them not do a back five because they were playing a back four that was very narrow. They're worried about Jackson, and they were leaving the wings completely open. And Chelsea finally figured that out. That Spurs didn't have a way to actually mark the sidelines. The other thing I was thinking about, kind of watching that is, to be honest, Jackson easily could have been just standing off sides. Have Jackson just kind of stand on the 35-yard line, not being marked. And as you were able to get a ball, down the wings, you can get a you can if you can get the ball to be in front of Jackson, he's going to be onside. So they could have tried to do something sneaky like that. They didn't, but the dam did finally break, and Jackson was able to actually in the game getting a hat trick. But the real story for Tottenham was this: it was losing Romero, losing Udogie to red cards, but when it rains, it pours, I guess is the saying. And they looks like they've lost Mickey Van de Ven and James Madison to sustained injuries, and it looks like they'll be out till Christmas, maybe even January. And Van de Ven is as just as important to what they've been doing as James Madison. Uh, one of the reasons I've been somewhat high on Spurs is what Van de Ven's been able to offer. He Ange likes playing his high line. He basically likes playing his fullbacks, kind of like his midfield sometimes. And what he does is he goes 2v2 at the back a lot. He goes, you know, he likes to have basically man marks essentially with the attackers, and Van de Ven has to do a lot of recovery, either through the middle or out wide. And he's got the kind of pace to be able to do that. Now you're not going to have that. Eric Dyer cannot do that, as we just saw. Eric Dyer can't really mark anyone. And it seems Ben Davies isn't really a center back either. And we saw that kind of show up in their game in the weekend, unfortunately. And so that was a little bit of the recap. Probably way too long on that. So yeah, it's not too bad. So then I'll move on to the game of the weekend and probably game of the season in Chelsea and Man City. Get started with Holland getting a PK. Uh, had this, and had Chelsea not gotten anything from this, had it just been, a 4-3 kind of game, I think I would have actually really let off with this because I hated this call, and I'll get into why. Thiago Silva was able to get one back with a header off a corner kick, and then Sterling made it 2-1, and then Conchi 2-2. So 2-2 at halftime. Waiter, I'll have another, please. And we actually got that. Usually we sometimes you see a game where, the first half is exceptional and the second half peters out and is a dud. Not this time. I mean, Chelsea City, immediately made it 2-3, and then Jackson made it 3-all. And then when it looked like that was maybe going to be it, Raji was able to get one at the 80-ish minute. He basically, takes a shot, it deflects, and then Cole Palmer with the PK in the 95th minute with a horrid mistake by Ruben Diaz. I mean, the topic leading into this was Chelsea were the topic of conversation Tuesday morning, but not for the victory over Tottenham, but how they nearly blew it, maybe playing with 9 men, and then with Man City thrashed Bournemouth last week, and then they won in the Champions League game again versus Young Boys. but that came at a cost. They lost John Stones to injury. That maybe showed up in this game, to be honest. And a sneaky storyline coming into this was City were facing off against Cole Palmer, the 20-year-old, the 21-year-old academy product that they allowed to leave for Chelsea back in September. The player that scored the only goal that City scored in the Community Shield, and the player that scored the only goal that helped them win the UEFA Cup. So this was a bit of a surprise when when they moved on from him, or they allowed Chelsea to get him, and lo and behold, it hurt them here. And he is their PK taker, and not just that, he's already at 21 years old. He scored big PKs for them. If you think back, he scored versus Arsenal, scored versus Tottenham. He got the first goal after the Romero red card, and so he's got 21 in age, but maybe not in football ability. He seems quite senior already. And again, just what a game this turned out to be. We've seen so many of these classic games between the big clubs turn into duds lately. A lot of these clubs don't want to necessarily be beaten, so what they do is they you at least have one team playing, quote unquote pragmatic, as they say, where they don't necessarily press. They make sure that their back line is settled and deep, and in a good rest defense, I think is the saying they use these days. And this one, it was end-to-end transitions everywhere, both teams pressing like crazy. This was entertaining. It really was. And normally I don't say that with a City game. Uh, to get started with Man City, we did see a little bit of a different lineup. So we saw Walker, Diaz, and Gvardiol basically as their back three. It was Rodri and Akanji in midfield, and then in front of them was Alvarez and Bernardo, kind of with like deeper roles, kind of free roles, double tens, I guess you could say, and then Foden, Holland, and Doku. The other thing I'll say here is I was surprised that we actually saw Doku get a start, simply because you know, given how open the game was, you would have expected. I wouldn't have been surprised to see Grealish actually get a start, and it maybe that could be something that we see versus Liverpool when City when the league returns, because they do open with Liverpool, and of course they do, uh, because a few of the times when Chelsea were able to either able to counter or to get a couple attacks on that side, Gvardiol didn't really have help. Doku wasn't really doing the best to track back. So I was a bit surprised about that. I think Doku's a better player. I've said that a number of times, but Grealish maybe offers a little bit more, out of possession. And then with Chelsea, we saw Reece James back. That really showed up. Showed up for one of the goals, early goals. He had to get subbed off, and then we saw Gusto come on for them, and Gusto had a pretty bad miss. James probably would have put away. We saw Diazy and Silva, and then Cucurella. So Levi wasn't able to play. Cucurella has low key been quite a good player for them since he's been brought back into the lineup. Sometimes that happens with a coach because it didn't work out for them at all last season. Cucurella, when Reece James was actually being hurt, was tried on the right in a few of these games when Marlo Gusto had his red card and had to miss a few games. But Cucurella has come in and done a decent job. He's not necessarily great. You can still get at him a little bit, but at least he's been serviceable for them. But then we saw Enzo and Casado and then Gallagher, kind of as like a 10. Palmer was played on the right, Sterling left, and then Jackson. Uh, this was maybe one of the reasons why it was so wide open is Enzo and Casado were not necessarily the best holding partnership, at least in this game. One thing that I noticed was for the first time in a while, Casado was played out of position a lot. Casado is supposed to be kind of like the holding player. You imagine it's not really going to be Enzo. He's the only protection in front of that back line, and the back line isn't able to play high because you have to worry about Holland. Thiago Silva as Holland is not necessarily something that they want. Silva has to have a running start to do anything with Holland. He has to have that can't be. It has to have be a little gap to start with. Diazy kind of similar, and Casado needed to basically hold a little bit more. And what he was doing is he was getting baited to run to wherever the ball was, and City were going around him. Bernardo Silva was turning around him. Bradley was doing the same. and they were able to get him out of position. And then at that point, Enzo's too high upfield. There's no one in front of the back four. That was happening a lot. So I mean, to just kind of quickly run down the game. First 8 minutes were actually a really bright opening for Chelsea. So Jackson made a few good runs and a few nice moments on the ball. I thought their press had done a pretty good job to rattle Ederson. That's not something we normally see. Uh, and the back line, they were kicking the ball out of bounds. It's not something you see from City. And then Cole Palmer had a moment. He messed up the attack though, but it was good play by Reece James to win the ball back and then play Palmer through. And then there was a Gallagher shot. So the first 18 minutes or so, Chelsea had 3 shots to City's 0. And then there was a chance for Palmer set up by Gallagher. And then at the 24th minute, a lot happens here. So first, Gallagher goes to ground and he hurts himself and he stays down. And because he gets back up and carries on after this, I think it shows he wasn't really hurt. And you don't really want to go at him, but maybe he's play acting, maybe he's trying to buy something. And City just keep playing. And what that means is Chelsea are down to 10 men at this point. And then Reece James goes for a header. I think it's him and Diazy. Both of them kind of go into each other. Maybe there's a little push by Doku, but they looked at it and they didn't see anything. Um, so so they go down, and City have a free cross into the air. I think it's Bernardo Silva, and Cucurella is deemed to have fouled Holland in the cross. Thiago Silva wins the header anyways. So maybe this happens, regardless. But they look at it and they say that Mark Cucurella, or at least the on-field decision was Mark Cucurella had been fouling Holland, tugging on his shirt, and that is deemed to be a PK. And I think Holland fouls Cucurella first. I think they're both tugging each other's arm, but the only reason why Holland's able to get in front of Cucurella is Holland tugs it first, and then Cucurella, after being out of position, is all over him. But I thought it was kind of shambolic that VAR looked at this and they upheld it. Some of these times it seems like the idea is they don't really want to make the ref look bad. They don't want to reverse a decision if it's not absolutely egregious. And I don't think that should be the reason for this kind of replay. I think the idea should be get the call right. And it's a big call for City of all teams. When City gets the first goal, they're able to dictate the game the way they want it. It's a big issue. We saw the same thing versus Man United. City seemed to like, yeah, you don't need to help this team out. And then Chelsea were able to at least rebound a little bit. There was a chance with a Reece James free kick. It's a really good free kick. They draw a save and they were able to get a corner kick, and then basically they score on the corner kick. It's a nice header by Thiago Silva. It's a near post hit, and it really is a nice play because Thiago Silva does the angle is tight against him. Ederson, I think, is beaten just by the surprise of it all. But near post header, and it goes in, and then back and forth we go. Nearly a banger from Foden. Curls in. This was happening a lot though. Caicedo was jumping out to a play with the ball, and City were simply passing it around him, taking him out of the play, and attacking the free space where he wasn't there. And so when that happened, there was no one to protect the back line. And when you have someone like Holland to deal with, that is not ideal. So here Rodri has the ball. He has a free dribble, and he's able to then find Foden. Foden cuts inside and has a pop. Cucurella is dead here because one, he's already on a yellow. Two, if he does mark Foden tight, he's got Alvarez making an overlap completely unmarked, and that basically we see that later for City's third goal. So here Foden decided to ignore that. He cut inside, had the pop, and it was close. This missed by inches. But Chelsea were the team that were able to retake the lead and go up 2-1, and with Sterling, and so they win the ball back. Enzo finds Cole Palmer, then Palmer plays in Reece James. Ruben Diaz and Guardiola make a giant mess of this. James benefits from it and has the mind to fire in a hard square ball, cross the 6-yard area where Sterling's there to tap it in. But the goal happens because of the lovely slip ball that Cole Palmer plays to Reece James. So you need James to make this run, but you also need Cole Palmer to have the football IQ to read it and play it, because it's the timing of the pass here that's everything. He plays it when Guardiola is running backwards. So Guardiola is running away from the ball at this point, and he's not able to stop himself. And you also need City to mess up on James here. But you also need Kyle Walker and Akanji to miss clearing it away. So a number of City errors here. But the other thing too that I noted is you need Sterling to make that run near goal because Jackson didn't do it, and I was surprised by that. So it's good on Sterling to recognize, hey, at least be an option here just in case. And he is because Jackson makes the wrong run. If Jackson's the only one in the box, this isn't a goal. So good on Sterling there, and it's also good for Sterling too because in so many of the games it feels like he hasn't really done much to perform against his old club. In this game, it finally did. Finally, he did show up. Showed up in a big way. Same with Cole Palmer. And then there's a chance, in the 42nd minute for Holland. What a save by Sanchez to deny this is a really good save. But I think it's funny to this comes after Chelsea had basically run the ball off Alvarez. Enzo does well to poach it off him. Chelsea have a breakaway. Gallagher finds Jackson. Everything is going good, and then Jackson messes it up and gives the ball away, allowing City to break and counter. And unlike in other games, they finally do. They don't slow down. They don't look to slowly build possession, whatnot. No, they look to exploit the space. And Bernardo Silva plays a wonderful ball to find Holland, making a run, splitting Thiago Silva and Diaz. And Holland, gets off a hard low shot, and forces Sanchez into a hard save, and he makes it. Uh, but again, it's another example of just how Casado wasn't having his best game. When Bernardo Silva gets the ball, he's 12 yards in front of Casado, and so Casado's just out of position. He's played himself out of the game, and at that point, there's no one to stop Bernardo Silva from having a free carry upfield, with time and space to just pick his options. And he plays a perfect pass to Holland making the run. And then there was a chance for Jackson, for the 44th minute, weak shot. But after what's kind of annoying is Sterling does so much good work here. He beats three players, has some nice skill with the ball, and Sterling, seems like he was filling himself with Kyle Walker. And this was good. This was great. Actually, this was great by Sterling. And then I think Jackson does do the right thing to actually have a swing. It's just a weak effort though. And then when you thought that was going to be it, and then in the 45th minute, Man City got a goal with the Kanji, and it's a free header. It comes from a corner kick. It's a clever corner kick. City take it. They go short. They play it short to Bernardo Silva, and Bernardo Silva has unmarked. Plays a great ball into the box and finds a Kanji completely unmarked as well. It's an easy header. But City get the corner kick by Doku taking on Cole Palmer 1v1, and Palmer had to go to ground and knock the ball out. So I mentioned how Doku maybe didn't have his best game. He was responsible for the reason why City got the corner kick. And so there you go. I even had a note. I was like, "Oh, time to breathe," because there was a lot happening there, and the race car just continued. So in the 46th minute, so it happened, immediate. Man City get the third with Holland, and so you have Alvarez overlapping Fulton, and it's just kind of a square ball into the box where Holland just basically forces it in. But this comes from a City throw in really high in their part of the field, and it's just run past by Ruben Diaz, takes out like six Chelsea players. He's able to pick out Holland posting up at the halfway line, does really well to collect the ball, and then he's able to find Alvarez. Alvarez is wide open. So again, that Enzo and Casado, kind of midfield pivot was not offering a whole lot of protection, and I think that's Pochettino saw that too, and he made a change, which I'll get to later. So here Alvarez just should not be as open as he is, and he's able to carry the ball upfield. He finds Foden. Um, Foden then waits. Foden then waits to see what his options are going to be. He can maybe go to goal like he did before, or he can play in Alvarez, and Alvarez continues to make that overlap run, and Foden plays him in, and then Alvarez it's just a square ball hard across the goal that Holland muscles it in. It's very similar to the goal that Chelsea scored, to be honest. But I even have a note here. You see the weakness I think in Enzo's game because when Alvarez gets in front of him, Enzo can't track back in time. And again, Mark Cucurella on a yellow card already. He has no help in a 2v1 situation. Uh, once you get the Alvarez is able to get the square ball on, there's no chance to really defend it. Because even if Diaz or Silva get contact, the likelihood of knocking it in their own net is high. And actually, there was a game in one of them where that actually happened. I think maybe it was Nottingham Forest and West Ham. So there was it was Anthony Robinson, so it was the Fulham game. So hey, make your runs to the byline and get those square balls in. It is hell for defenders. They don't want that. They want you to just have something cross something in where they can maybe use their head, use their aerial ability. So, anyways, not to do that rant again. Um, so here's the Chelsea sub. So Mudryk comes on for Enzo, and that moves Sterling to right wing, Mudryk left wing, and Gallagher deeper. And Enzo was struggling, I thought, out of possession. Enzo wasn't having a bad game when Chelsea had the ball. It's just out of possession. So I think Caicedo needed someone with better legs just next to him, and that's what Gallagher offered. They moved Palmer to operate as the 10. And it happens almost immediate. 60th minute, there's a really good chance for Cole Palmer. Uh, it's a nearly unreal goal, I think, by Cole Palmer. So he drops into a pocket in the middle of the field. He gets on the ball, turns quickly on it, and then carries it around Rodri and Ruben Diaz to get into the box where he can only get off a kind of a weak off balance shot. Unfortunately, after all this really good work, it's still a spectacular effort by him. No sign of fear on him. And then Chelsea get the third goal, and it is by Jackson. It's a Gallagher strike, Jackson rebound. But what happens here is Gallagher has since dropped to form that midfield pivot, and he has a fantastic. So he's getting the ball deeper, and he has a great ball upfield to pick up Mudryk on the wing. Mudryk's doing a good job to hold some width. Um, and he's doing well to keep as wide as possible, and he's done well to get away from Foden and Alvarez. This is maybe where you can go with them a little bit, and then Mudryk does well to collect the ball off his chest, does it smoothly, and then he's able to draw basically three City players onto him, and before they can get to him, he's able to feed in Casado, and then Casado quickly squares it to Gallagher, who continued his run, and Gallagher basically has a pop, top of the box and forces an Ederson save. It's a well hit ball though. Sometimes you see this goes, 10 flights into the bleachers. So he hits it hard, and it's got good power, good spin on it, good technique here, and Ederson can only parry it, and the rebound basically falls kindly to Jackson. Jackson has a nice first touch, and then has a nice, really good finish. Good on him to collect it the way he does, but I think the main reason why Jackson's able to get to this loose ball is Ruben Diaz weirdly goes to ground. Maybe he thinking he can block Gallagher's shot, which is just very strange. Because even if Diaz does block it, you can possibly deflect it into your own net anyways. And when that happens, that's the reason why Jackson's able to be the first one to get to the ball. So just a strange moment. It seems like he goes to ground a little easier than maybe would have expected, and that showed up later in the game. And then there was a real massive chance for Malagusto. Blows it over. Rodri misplayed a pass that Sterling intercepted. Sterling did well here, got it onto his left foot, and Sterling did well here after intercepting the ball, and then was able to draw a couple players onto him, and he was able to feed in Augusto. And I think the only thing you can say here is because it's on his he is close to the goal. It's on his left foot. Maybe he's just not comfortable with it. And he swings at it and just balloons it too high. Maybe he was leaning back. I don't know. Uh, and then Man City go on to take the lead with Rodri. It's just Rodri just a shot that deflects off Thiago Silva. Sanchez can do nothing about this. He's wrong footed by the deflection. But I think the interesting thing here is just City are playing around with the box. And first, Kovacic has come on, former Chelsea player. That's kind of funny. And he takes a swing, and that's blocked. But then the rebound falls to Rodri, and instead of recycling possession, instead of trying to do this pep ball, he goes off script and decides to have a pop himself, and that's basically what gets them the fourth goal. And you thought, well, that's kind of annoying. City are gonna win because of that lame Holland PK, and lo and behold, Chelsea get a reprieve with a PK in the 96th minute. Truly remarkable how this came down to. What's funny enough is a couple of former Pep players, Sterling and then Cole Palmer. And so what happened here is, let's see. Du- 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 du. Do I even have okay, so Sterling has a terrific ball into the box, and he's able to pick out Armando Broja. Broja has since come on. Uh, and Ruben Diaz flies to ground, basically takes out Broja out. But Broja is clever here, because he makes sure to keep his planted leg down where Ruben Diaz goes through him. It's brave by Broja too, because this could have been a bad injury. But this goal happened because of that pass. It's a really good pass by Sterling here. Another thing that happens is I think Jackson. What he does is he takes a little run. So it was interesting to see Broja come on and not take off Jackson. and Jackson makes a clever little run as Sterling's about to pass us, and that moves Ruben Diaz away from Broja. So that run by Jackson created this too. So I think it's worth to call out that as well. And yeah, the former Pep player comes on and gets his last laugh essentially with a great PK. Ederson dives the right way, and it's just he beaten for pace. What a PK this was! Given the moment, given it's versus former team, you can't imagine what he would have been feeling, and what a terrific PK this was. And so that was a game, and what a game! Just and again, I was just frankly that the Holland PK wasn't the thing that decided it. The the thing that also was the kind of annoying was it seems like just so often Man City keep getting away with like shaky calls to go their way. Kovacic not being sent off with Arsenal would be another. So I'm glad that wasn't the storyline. And when you think back, what a week it's been for Chelsea. Not necessarily the performances itself, but had you gone back and looked at the schedule on say Sunday a week ago, you see Spurs and you see Man City, and they get 4 points out of that. I think every Chelsea fan would have been going to church after and being like, "Well, we'll take that absolutely." Uh, and they did play some great football here. I mean, so the interesting you can take a look back at how the Spurs game went. But they are starting to at least click a little bit. I did like how we finally got a game here of two teams really trying to press like hell to win the ball back. So there was a lot of space for both teams to exploit, and they did. We've only really seen that, in my opinion, this year with Liverpool and Brighton. So it was good to finally see some of that, some more. I mean, the XG was 2.9 for Chelsea, Man City 2.8, five big chances apiece. Low in passing numbers in passing for both teams. Chelsea 377, 85%. Man City 477, 90%. That's probably what you expect, but usually City are usually in that upper 5 600 number. Chelsea in that five number as well. 19 shots on target though combined for both teams. This was spectacular football. And again, what a difference a couple of games makes since the Brentford result. Uh, I spent a lot of weeks or a lot of time talking about this run of fixtures before it's happened, because I was a little bit worried about them. And but I was also I keep trying to hedge on Chelsea because that midfield has started to click a little bit. But what's weird is when you think about it, as hard as the fixture list is, the games that Chelsea have struggled in have been the teams versus like, kind of the bottom teams where they've had a lot of the ball and they can't, put anything into the net. In these games versus quote unquote the top competition, they're about to play Newcastle as well. It's teams that go at them. And so, both teams are going man to man. There's going to be space to exploit. And if you have midfield, if you've got a good delivery on you, you can make those runs in behind and time that well. It kind of plays into Chelsea's hand a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's been a blessing to actually play against some of these more top teams where, say, had they had a fixture list of like Crystal Palace and Fulham, not necessarily to call people out. We saw versus Brentford. Brentford was a really good example where they had a majority of the ball, they got a number of shots off, but they just weren't able to make anything count versus Brentford's well organized back line. It's been different these last couple of games. Helped going against a 9-man team in Spurs because they were getting outplayed before that. But stick on with Cole Palmer. It's interesting that he's become almost undroppable for them. Just he's a PK taker now. But it's also his understanding of how to play, take people on, shield the ball, play teammates in the box. He's got a knack for finding gaps and threading passes forward. He's become their James Madison in a sense. And Chelsea fans have had to stomach Havertz. They've had to stomach Mason Mount in this low position for years. They had Yao Felix, but I feel like they misplayed him. And they finally found their number 10. It seems like, and I don't know what they're going to do when they get in Cuckoo back, which is kind of interesting. That's probably not something they would have feared at the minute, but I don't know how you can take him out of the lineup. Maybe play in Cuckoo right wing. Cole Palmer 10. Sterling or Mudryk left wing, and Brozier or Jackson striker. Or do you get a striker in January as well? Brozier's back, and he did draw the late PK. Do you try to play Broja over Jackson now. Jackson's gone 4 goals for those last 2 games as well. That's worth kind of thinking about it. Another guy I wanted to call out was Connor Gallagher's pressing. Not usually you see someone put fear in Rodri, and his overall game was pretty good. I mean, 95% pass accuracy, 6 for 12 ground duels, 2 key passes. Um, and he's rarely become one of Chelsea's more important players in the squad. And I just think he needs to not, play act being hurt because he did lead a role into the goal. Sterling's take on ability has been really big, either from the left side or the right side. His recognition to make runs, Jackson didn't necessarily do that when maybe he should have. And again, it's kind of fitting that Pep finally pays a price for having two of his former players, come back to get him. But another thing too is Reece James being back. He handled Doku. I think Pep maybe had the idea that, oh, maybe I'll just get Doku to do some 1v1 stuff to, maybe Reece James isn't the player that he's been. He's been dealing with injury. Maybe he's not necessarily fully fit. Reece James was really good in this game. Now he was only able to go like 60 minutes, but the 60 minutes were really good. He was able to offer some width that allowed Palmer to play a little bit more inside and narrow. He was making these runs. He was winning the ball back. He was fantastic defensively when City had the ball in the box. The only negative I think is I think I mentioned it before. It was Caicedo's first game in a while. Just too aggressive running to the ball, leaving spaces behind him. And City were having success, just kind of baiting him. The interesting thing here is Caicedo and Enzo the best midfield partnership if you're going to play kind of a two end pivot. If not, I do wonder if the idea should be they do have Lavia to maybe try, or I don't necessarily know if Gallagher is necessarily the full time fix. But Gallagher has a little bit more legs than Enzo. It is weird to see how I'm now thinking maybe Enzo shouldn't get into their best 11, at least for these high flying transition kind of games. In more slow, controlled games, Enzo obviously works out. But I think I never would have expected me to say have that opinion before this. But at least this game was a little problem. Um, and so there we go. I mean, the interesting Pep said Chelsea are a better team than Arsenal is post game. I thought that was a little wild. Maybe he's trying to get under Arteta's skin. But if everyone's healthy, this doesn't feel like a mid-table side. And the advanced stats have been predicting that for a while. Now, again, I keep going back and forth on this because I was high on them to maybe be before this, and then that Brentford game made me take a step back. Um, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how they do versus Newcastle, and they have like Man United. I think after that, maybe they have Brighton. Somewhere in between as well, and then all of a sudden we're going to get around to Christmas, and then Nkuku is going to return. And how does this team look with Nkuku? It's starting to look strong, to be honest. And they have Colwell, they have Batashile coming back. Where how are they going to make how are they going to work the back line? This team could look really different. I mean, they still have Lavia. We haven't really seen him yet. This team could look a lot different by the time January comes around. And do they go get a striker? Does Jackson continue his good form where he's got a little confidence now, or not? I didn't like how Jackson made a couple of the wrong runs. For that Sterling goal. But at the same time, Jackson made a terrific run that let open for the PK. It was really good job by Pochettino to play Jackson and Brocha together. So yeah, there you go. I do think they deserve this. And then with City, um, is this really the worst thing in the world? They're still top of the table. Kevin De Bruyne with a month away. I mentioned how Chelsea about to get Nkuku. Chelsea City's about to get Kevin De Bruyne again. Um, but I do think in this game in particular, we have seen a few games now where not having John Stones has showed up a little bit, and just it's the spacing isn't there. It's not the same. And Akanji can't do the same job in midfield. I don't think Rico Lewis can either. So it was a non-city like game where there was nonstop transitions. Rodri did not have a good go of it in this game, and I think that kind of showed. I think Rodri maybe needs a little help next to him. He's still the best number 6 in the world. But just in this game, he was a little vulnerable, at least out of possession, and Chelsea were or out of possession and in possession. Chelsea were able to turn it over a few times. Uh, but it's not all bad. I mean, it's probably Foden's best game since maybe that Newcastle game, because uh, I've been wondering, can Foden play on the right? Sometimes he plays. To me, he plays too narrow. Here, he was offering great width, and he was able to. He was taking on Mark Cucurella. He was he had an overlap with Alvarez. Uh, that was quite scary and quite good. And Foden was playing well. Um, and with Holland, Holland didn't factor in last week. Probably his best game this season. 2 goals and I think an assist. Just the interesting thing here is they were finally looking to play him. We didn't see this for Arsenal. And the only thing I want to say about that is does Pep look at that and be like, this is why I don't want to play these kind of balls to Holland where it is an open game because the game that Holland's been his most influential in some respects is the game that they looked the most vulnerable in transitions. So that's not necessarily great. But he was this was he was quite good. Now it took a while for him to get going. I don't think he even had a touch in the Chelsea penalty area until the PK. Essentially, he was quiet in the first half, but man, were they looking for him in the second. And then maybe a concern was it was not Ruben Diaz's best 90 minutes, to be honest, and Kyle Walker. Now they've been a couple of games where he's gotten cooked. So and that's pretty much it. So the Man City and Liverpool next or Saturday after Turkey Day. And so a couple things I'll be looking out for that is can Liverpool handle Manchester City overlapping them, either with Foden and Alvarez on the right or Bernardo Silva, Grealish, or Doku on the left. And can Liverpool create some transmission moments like Chelsea did? The other thing is Darwin Núñez did not play in the game last year at the Etihad. But the other thing that was interesting is Holland didn't play in that game at the Etihad. It was Alvarez leading their attack. And so what's funny enough is that before that stupid Spurs game, Liverpool hadn't lost in the league until that Man City game when I think they pumped them like 4-1. Um, and that was a game when Henderson and Fabinho were just so bad in midfield that forced Klopp to start experimenting a little bit with Trent in midfield. And so that is it. And then after the Liverpool game, Man City have Aston Villa, who are only a couple points back from Liverpool and Arsenal, and then Spurs. But it could be a weaker Spurs side. So they still have Son. Pep doesn't like Son. So that is a rundown for that game. See how we're doing for time. It's probably as bad as I would have expected. Yeah, it's not good. Not good to be for an hour to spend on one game. And I'll move on to Wolves and Tottenham, and unfortunately, could spend a little time on this. Goal from Brennan Johnson. First like 5 minutes or so, you wonder, oh, Spurs are just going to bounce back. This is big Ange, and then they weren't able to see the game out, and in the 90th minute, I think it's Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer just like kicks the ball out of bounds, and basically kicks it to the Wolves coach Gary O'Neill. Kicks it right at him. And, 30 seconds after that, Sarabia scores an unbelievable goal. I'll get into that a little bit later. He, had the first touch to collect it, and then after that, the hit. This is not something you normally expect, especially someone that's coming on cold. He had only just come on, and then Lamania came on, or Lamania had a fantastic game all game, and he made a run into the box just completely unmarked, and I think it's Sarabia. Sarabia again was able to he gets the ball from the wing. I think if there's a free kick, he gets the ball on the wing completely unmarked as well, and he's able to run into the box, and everyone's kind of focused on him. What's he going to do? And he's able to just slip in Lamena into the box, and it's a great finish. And Spurs from like the 90th minute had the game won, but really the entire momentum of the second half was in Wolves' favor, and unfortunately what you probably would have expected did come up. The losses to Udogie, the losses to Christian Romero, the losses to James Madison and Mickey Van de Ven absolutely showed up. And unfortunately for Tottenham, it's not just going to be a one game thing. Now they do get Udogie for their next game back, but they're going to be without Madison and Van de Ven at least through January, I believe, at least through Christmas, and then or Boxing Day, as I say. And with Mero, because it's a straight red, I think he's going to miss the City game. To be honest, so not necessarily great. They lost their transition stopper and they lost their number 10, their creative player that links everything up. And another thing that's really unfortunate for Spurs is this was a great game to see what Madison's Miss would do because it's probably the lowest shot, the lowest, I guess, active, or it's the least active that we've seen Son look for them since Son just moved him to be that striker spot. And no one's able to pick out his runs. I think he finally had a shot in like the 88th minute. And it was one of those, like, frustrating shots. It wasn't really the shot was on because he took it and it was deflected. So, there were a lot of uh-ohs here. And then with Wolves had a horrid break last week, where it looked like they looked like they were going to, escape with a 1-1 kind of game, and then out of nowhere, well, they conceded a goal off, Cam Archer had a wonderful shot. It looked like it was just gonna be a 1-1 kind of game, and then, very similar to what happened to them versus Newcastle. Uh, Sheffield got a, corner kick. Wolves weren't able to clear it, and basically what happened is, someone went to go clear the ball, and it looks like, what happened was, a Sheffield player dived, essentially, and fooled the ref, and then VAR wasn't able to reverse it, and Sheffield basically won off that PK because it happened like the 90th minute. So Wolves were just back to back a few real amok streaks, because same thing happened with Newcastle, and this is the first game without Neto, or the first game without Neto last week. I thought that showed up, and here we saw something different. We saw basically Gary O'Neill moved to, now he had been doing back threes, but he had been playing with three attackers. Here he used Semedo and Out Noy basically as his wingers, he played wing backs essentially. So it was Gomez and Lamena as the two kind of structures in midfield, and then Cunha and Wang up top. Oh, there was a third. There was a Bellegarde and Gomez and Lamena were kind of like the midfield three. And frankly, they Wolves kind of out tactic or out yeah, yeah, I guess I could say that. Wolves or Gary O'Neill out tacticked, I guess I could say. Ange in this game. Now, that is to be fair, you can't really play Ange ball the way that we've been seeing with Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, Emerson Royal, with Hoiberg as like your number 10. It's not the same team, and it's unfortunate. And he's going to have to find a way to be significantly more. I hate the word pragmatic, but that feels like that is the word to use here. He's not gonna be able to play the way he's been playing with these kind of players. Uh, it did start off okay though. They get the first goal with Johnson. So it starts with Brandon Johnson actually having the ball on the left touch line, and then Spurs move the ball from the one side of the field to the other. Kulishevsky gets the ball, waits for Pedro Porro to make an overlap run, and then from there it's a square ball across the goal for Johnson to tap in. Seeing this a little bit more. We were seeing this. It's a very similar goal to what Man City scored. Uh, and weirdly enough, that really because it happened like the 3rd minute. That was all the enjoyment that the Spurs fans got in this game because the rest was all Wolves. Uh, at least until Spurs kind of woke up a little bit in the second half, but a chance here in the 10th minute, Ait Nori. It's a good example of why this is going to be a problem though for Spurs going forward. So here, Wolves are spreading the field out with their wingbacks, and he receives the ball and draws Porro, the fullback, onto him. And then, so right as Nori gets the ball, he sees he's able to one time it to Mateus Cunha, and Cunha does really well to draw Eric Dyer to first chase him, and then Cunha has a little dummy turn to wrong foot Dyer and allows Wolves space to exploit where he left it, and then Ait Nori is able to sprint past Porro, and Cunha plays him in, and it's nearly an equalizer, but because Nori has Wang to square ball into the box, but it's blocked off the last second by Ben Davies, and then there was a chance by Lamena. So 33rd minute and a half. So Ait Nori is causing Pedro Porro really problems. He doesn't know when to get tight or when to lay off. And here, Pedro Porro is laying off Ait Nori. So Ait Nori gets the ball and has time to look and scan the field, and he sees the switches on. And so he unloads and plays a pass all across the field, upfield to the right side, where Wolves have a 2v1 with Lamena and Semedo, and Emerson Royal gets bulldozed over. Maybe he could have caught a foul here. I don't know. Semedo gets onto the loose ball, and then with no one around him in the box, forces a pretty good save by Vicario. And so at halftime thought it did feel like Spurs were lucky to be ahead. Vicario had been by far the more worked goalkeeper, and the chances just kept coming. So here at the 15th minute, I have something for Cunha. This is nearly brilliant. I have as in the notes. So Tati Gomez wins the ball off Kulishevsky, and then carries it a little bit. And then there's a lot of quick one-touch passing here by Wolves to play around Tottenham, pressing them, and they play through it easily. And then they find the open man in space. This is a Brighton move, in my opinion. And then so maybe I shouldn't say that, but this is very the one-touch football and the way that they had seemed like the way that they had the ball, they were manipulating how Spurs were they were manipulating where they wanted a Spurs defender to move to, and then they were going over top of them. That is something that I've seen, Brighton do a lot. So that's why I kind of put that there. But here, so Ait Nouri eventually gets on the ball, gets on the wing, and sees Cunha making a run into the box, and he squares it, looking for him, and Cunha gets his feet wrong, flops on the shot. But this was a really good move before that, and Wolves were playing really good football. But at the same time, Kulishevsky, Højbjerg, and Porter were often lazy and not really running back and keeping up with their runners. So it made them look easy, or it made it look good. There was a lot of space to exploit because if you get behind your runner and you don't know when he tracks back, it becomes a problem. And it was a big problem here. Um, and then in the 60th minute, there's a chance for Wang, comes off a corner kick. So it's not really an open play thing. It's more just Wang, yeah, he sees the ball kind of late. And, given the form he's on, you would have expected maybe him to do better. He doesn't. So, a low moment here, but his link up and overall play was quite good in this game. And then there was really the chance to kill it came to Brendan Johnson. And it looks like maybe he even had a cramp after this. So you can't really go at him that much. But it's really the one time the Spurs are able to kind of play around Wolves, pressing them and get behind them. And Højbjerg and Kulishevsky to do well here to draw Wolves towards them, and then they find a way to advance the ball down the sideline where they left space. And before you know it, Tottenham have Højbjerg, running free all the way up field. It's a 2v1 situation. He picks up Brendan Johnson, making a run upfield ahead of him on the other side, and Johnson gets the ball, and he mishits a shot out of bounds. He has a chance to be 1v1 with the keeper if he's a little bit more patient. The keeper is kind of chasing out a little bit, so the chip is on, but he gets the chip entirely wrong. And then it looked like he had a cramp after that. And then there was a chance for Lo Celso. So here it looks like they have a breakaway again, and Son just can't get past the last defender. Son tries a shot anyways. It's blocked. It's the first shot he had all game. And then they recycle possession. They get the ball, top of the box, and Lo Celso, has a shot from distance, and it's a good shot. Draws a save, but that was really kind of scant. That was really all they offered. And then Wolves were able to get the goal with Sarabia, and it just what a touch and finish this was by Sarabia, a player that had just come on. And again, you want to celebrate a player making a fantastic play, but unfortunately, do you think this is more in Tottenham's doing than anything else? The messing up. It's the 91st minute. Eric Dyer has the ball, and he can do anything in the world other than this because he immediately gives the ball away. Eric Dyer just plays it right to Gary O'Neill. Gary O'Neill catches it, immediately hands it off to a Wolves player, and Wolves quickly throw the ball in, find Wang, and then Wang plays it to Cunha, who's occupying the wing unmarked. And then Cunha is able to see Sarabia make it a run into the box and floats a perfect ball into his path. And Højbjerg, Eric Dyer, and Ben Davies are completely motionless and oblivious here, is what I put. It feels kind of harsh, but the way they played was kind of harsh. Sarabia makes a run into the box unmarked. That should not happen. Not in the 91st minute. And then, it's a video game first touch he has. So, I mean, if he doesn't collect the ball the way he does, probably this isn't a goal. Because this is just, he should not be able to do this kind of touch. And then the second touch, he banks it into the net. And then in the 97th minute, they get the second with Lemania. And again, when it rains, it pours. And Lo Celso fouls Lemania, and Wolves quickly, take the free kick. Seeing Sarabia completely unmarked on the touchline. Royal could do a lot better here. It's the 97th minute. Come on. And he dribbles toward the box unimpeded, and then he's able to, see Lemania just continuing his run unmarked. He's jogging in front of Eric Dyer here, and maybe Eric Dyer's trying to do an offside trap, but Lemania is well onside, and it's a great job by Sarabia to spot it, well played, and then Lemania, well onside, is able to finish it. I mean, it's still not the easiest finish. He's able to slide it into the corner of the net, and it was the right result, to be honest. I mean, Spurs started off brightly, but really petered out after that, and Wolves peppered Vicario in a sense. They didn't get a lot on target. I think they had 17 shots and only 4 on target. But they had a lot of, I guess, pressure, I guess you would have put it. They put the goalkeeper in pressure situations, essentially, or the defense in pressure situations. Maybe they didn't make the goalkeeper work. Uh, they just kept finding free runners in behind, either through the middle or on the wing, and it felt like it was only a matter of time. It was. Eric Dyer, Ben Davies backline felt like it was only a matter of time, and it was. Emerson Royal instead of Udogi. We see why Udogi's been playing all these games. Royal did not have his good game, and really, it's Gary O'Neill's second half adjustments. He Semeno's service wasn't working, so he took him off. Brought on Matt Doherty. He brought on Matt Doyle. Matt Doyle took the free kick, after, Mena was fouled, he quickly took the free kick and found Sarabia. So well done, Matt Doyle. And, Sarabia came on, and all he did was get a goal and assist, for the 2 games and, played a role. All 3 players played a role in those last couple of, goals. Uh, I mean, the Wolves, 2 point something, 2.15, XG, Tottenham, point 0.7. Tottenham with 6 shots and 2 on target. 4 big chances for Wolves, 11 corner kicks to 3. That's a pretty telling stat to where the game was as well. Um, because Wolves had a lot of shots. A lot of these were blocked to go for corner kicks. Wolves, 364 passing, 85%. And then Tottenham did have the ball, 551, 88%. But for the most part, Wolves press they were dictating where Tottenham were going with the ball. Tottenham weren't really able to play through them necessarily. Where I thought the opposite was happening. I thought Wolves were kind of baiting Tottenham to run where they wanted. So I thought Wolves were manipulating the ball a little bit better. And that probably showed up in the stats. And so I will spend some time on Wolves, but I do want to speak a little bit on Spurs because I do feel a little at fault here because I think I was trying not to jinx them, but was starting to really talk them up and really starting to believe. But it did have a caveat. I did have all my faiths preferencing saying they had to stay healthy because I was worried about their depth. And man, it has to be so cruel for those fans to see them playing as well as they were versus Chelsea. It was at home. It was at the new Spurs Stadium, London Stadium, and they were flying. Everything was looking good. And then the Brennan Johnson Son goal was fantastic team goal. And then the offsides happens, and then the Udogie near red card happens, and then just their side just collapsed. And then not only in composure, Madison and Udogie, with Madison and Van de Ven with those injuries, and then the 2 red cards, and it's unfortunate too because, well, I don't know. The goal before the beginning of the season, I think, was top 4, and that shouldn't change. That shouldn't change this goal, regardless of where they were in the table. But it does look like it's harder now, because this was supposed to be somewhat the easy stretch of their schedule because they have Aston Villa, Man City, and Newcastle for the next 4 games. Um, and with no Van de Ven, I don't know how they can play a high line versus Watkins, Holland, and Callum Wilson or Anthony Gordon. I don't. Hoiberg in front of Busima and Hazard did not work at all. And maybe they can switch to a midfield 3 of Betancourt, Basuma, and Sar. So you can be maybe a little more of a workhorse kind of midfield. I mean, there's still some quality in there, but you're not going to be able to play with a creative number 10. Uh, yeah, can Betancourt, since he's come back from injury, he's gotten some minutes here and there, but he hasn't done a full 90. Can he have the fitness to do this? Or they can try Lo Celso in the Madison role. Lo Celso is a little bit of a number 10 kind of player. Other than that, I don't know what they can do. And I don't know what they can do at the back line with missing Van de Ven and Romero. They're going to miss both at a minimum Van de Ven is out till January. They're going to miss Romero for the Man City game and Aston Villa game. So it is, I would not want to be in Ange's shoes. Pochettino has been named the manager of the month for 3 months. If he's able to keep this team from sliding, he'll be more than deserving to win it 4 months in a row. Because this was rough. And then so moving on to with Wolves, I was just really happy for Gary O'Neill because it seems like every negative bounce has gone against them this season. And because you go back to the first game of the season, they were unlucky not to get something with Man United with it looked like Onana, clattered into Kolasinac, and that wasn't called. So I am starting to wonder: is this more of just hey, feel good story? Guy from Bournemouth, getting the boot, coming to Wolves, making a side, mid table side. Is this more than that? Can he be someone's Eddie Howe at a bigger club? That is something I'm going to get into a little bit later. But because they're doing this without Neto, Sarabia coming in, I was wondering who was going to step up without Neto. Sarabia came in as a sub player, and he's a Spanish national player that got starts in Spain in the 2021 Euros. I remember him. I remember he was a former PSG player, so he has some game to him. It has been weird how because I mean, what a first touch he had for the goal and the perfect pass for the second goal, and it's weird how he hasn't worked out since arriving. He didn't work out with Lopetegui, um, nor did it work out with the manager that was there before Lopetegui. And man, is he? Sometimes that can happen. Sometimes all it takes is someone new coming in, and to me, Gary O'Neill has something to do with this, to be honest, because we've seen Wang being a better player this year. Neto was talented as hell before this, but he took a while for him to recover from injury. Maybe he's not the best example. Cunha has been fantastic for them. We didn't really see this last year from him. I do think there's a little coaching here. But another thing too is they've looked stronger since moving to a back three with Totti Gomez. So he's got Dawson, Kilman, and Gomez now as kind of a consistent, trio of a back three. That's pretty good. They have a strong core in the middle as well. So Mario Lemena had 3 tackles and 10 recoveries in this game, 7 for 9 ground duels, 88% accuracy. Yao Gomez, 92% pass accuracy, 3 interceptions, 9 recoveries, 5 of 10 duels, and Bellegarde, 9 of 15 ground duels. Each player created, just more than one chance as well, and 4 shots on target. That's maybe the only negative. It's all the good that Cunha and Wang couldn't really hit the broadside of a barn. So that's a little unfortunate, but everything else was just fantastic. And again, with Gary O'Neill, they're playing some really Wolves are playing just really really good stuff. And again, it's not just having guys making risky dribbles anymore, because that was a little bit of the appeal to Wolves in the beginning. I remember there was a Brighton game where Wolves looked really good in the first half, and then were completely exposed at the back. Brighton or Brighton, so that can happen. He's kind of changed that a little bit by, you go switch into that back three and, bring in Tati Gomez. Gomez has pretty good recovery pace. There was a moment in the game when it looked like Kulishevsky maybe was able to get behind, and Gomez was able to, win, sprint back and be first to the ball. Um, so he has found a way to change his team, on the fly. He's lost Neto. How is he going to, fix that? And he was able to do that at least in this game. And he made really good adjustments in this game in the second half, because all of his changes worked, and that's been a theme that I have seen him covering him in a lot of these games. He did that for Bournemouth as well, and I am wondering, can this is the ceiling for him a little bit more than what we've seen? Could he do this at a bigger club? I kind of think he could. Now, again, that is, I am very reactionary sometimes. Sometimes I overreact a little bit too much. I think I do want to see what he's going to do. The rest of the season. I told my buddy Jeremy that I would take him as a U.S. M&T coach if something were happening to Berhalter. Now that would be risky because he's never coached a national team before. At least, yeah, I don't think. But another thing too is Man United are having an issues here and there. If they do decide to do something with Ten Hag, I don't think they can get Thomas Frank. I don't think they can get Unai Emery. Who could they go get? I would be interested if they would look here. Now, again, probably not. Probably completely foolish. You don't. It could be the Graham Potter situation where it's going to be different. Managing a side with egos, hearing the way that these players speak about him, hearing how Bournemouth players spoke about him, Bournemouth's former players, hearing how Mateus Cunha has talked to him, these guys love him. And again, the job he did to keep Bournemouth up last season was unreal. I'm on record saying I thought he was coach of the year, and he's got this team looking really, really good. And this is a side that hasn't changed personnel, and they didn't look like this last season. This is a side for the last like 2 or 3 years has been one of the worst for big chance creation, one of the worst when it comes to goals. He's got them, 13th. He's got them, 11th in some of those categories. So again, there's nothing but praise for me on Gary O'Neill, and then I'll move on to Liverpool and Bournemouth. Thankfully, they were able to rebound and do something a little bit better than they showed before that because they didn't have the best weekend or the midweek before this. Disappointing versus Luton, and then quite disappointing versus Toulouse. And Klopp actually even said, going into that, he was concerned about they didn't win a lot of duels in either game. That was back to back poor results. I thought Andy Robinson's miss was maybe starting to show up with Tsimikas. Tsimikas had a horrible giveaway for the Toulouse goal, and Gojo Gomez played left back versus the Luton Town, and I didn't think that necessarily worked out. That's not necessarily why they lost, but yeah, it's not necessarily why they conceded on the corner kick. But I thought he wasn't offering anything with his left foot for crossing. Uh, so I thought they were quite narrow versus Luton Town in a weird way, and they still had a number of shots, but there's just something that I was concerned about. And then with Brentford are coming off a really good run of games here. And they just beat West Ham. They've gotten healthy again. They got Ben Mee back. Thomas Frank had been starting to experiment a little bit. Playing Neil Maupay, starting him, and he went back to playing that back three 3-5-2 kind of formation with Bremo and Wiza. And you'll understand why, because this is worked for him versus the quote unquote bigger clubs, and they did play well. The scoreline is not indicative of how the game went. There were a couple. There was and Bremer was 1v1 with Allison. If that goes in, they score the first goal. There were a number of scary moments watching this game. So I thought I did feel like this was more of a 2-1 kind of game than anything else. I mean, Liverpool was still really, really good, but they scared me to be honest. But I did think it was maybe too conservative. I was surprised that they didn't play. They didn't start Marpai, and they didn't go with either a 3-4-3 or they didn't find a way to play him because what you saw a lot in this game to me was there was no outlet at all to relieve pressure. Brentford were sitting in a box defending the entire game, and any kind of long ball to Mbeumo or Wiza, Matip and Van Dijk were winning every single one. So that was maybe necessarily Malpai doesn't necessarily do much better, but I think he would have been able to space him out better. Uh, and with Liverpool, I was worried as well going into this because no Alexis for suspension. There was Curtis Jones was injured, Gravenberch was injured. They were kind of limited a little bit in their options for midfield, and so we saw Gakpo come into midfield, and we saw this with Chelsea. It did not work with Chelsea. It worked really well here, and I liked this. And I think I'm on record before the season saying I wanted to see this a little bit more. I do want to see this a little bit more. He was the only one that actually won some duels in this game. Slabashly, I think, has been overplayed. I think he's starting to show a little signs of he's not necessarily injured, but I think he's a little bit fatigued. And then the other thing was Endo is not working out at all. Liverpool have a bit of a number six, holding DM problem. And unfortunately, that is maybe what you would have expected at the start of the season. At least most Liverpool fans would have expected that. And I think maybe most like non-Liverpool fans would have predicted that as well. Because what did they do right before the season started? They bidded 120 million for Caicedo. If everyone remembers that, it looked like they had even gotten him from Brighton, and then Chelsea were like, "Oh, we're gonna pull this back," and their agent did something shady. He prevented Caicedo from getting on the plane, allegedly. They were also going for Movin Lavia before that, and out of nowhere, they just immediately were like, "Oh, we'll just sign this Endo player from I think Stuttgart," and he's 30 years old. I understand him for a squad player. Now he's been playing in some Europa games. He doesn't look fit enough to be a starter. and he's got a little bit of a streak in him to go to ground and be rash. He could have gotten sent off versus Louise. I thought he was playing on an early yellow and got a little lucky there. I thought in this game he could have gotten sent off as well, and that was a big talking point because I think it was maybe 1-0 only at that point. And he went to ground and got a lot of Christian Norgard. And again, I had heart in the mouth moment at that point. So I mean, to get on to the game, the first chance came to Brentford, and it was a stupid foul by Endo. Just early in the game, the one thing you don't want to do is give Brentford some free kick opportunities because they're really good on set pieces, and they even had their keeper take this. So what they that basically that gave Brentford, they tried to do a little bit of a man advantage here. And it's a good ball floated in. Ayer gets onto the loose ball, floats the ball into the box, and it nearly found a couple Brentford players on the end of it. So I thought it was stupid to get away the free kick, and then Darwin Núñez scored 2 goals that didn't count. The first one was chopped off for a very tight offsides. I hate the way they do these lines, and now after actually seeing how they do it, I hate it even more. But a lot happens here as well. So Semikis takes a risk to run the ball, and he kinda catches the leg of Roslov. My buddy texted, and he was like, "That's a red card. Go back to looking at it." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. Don't do that." It's not called, they didn't even look at it to review, so thankfully, because, on the replay, they never actually showed, a close, angle of it, but he's going for the ball, he wins the ball, but his follow through catches the leg. I mean, is it better when, the leg is high, when both legs are high than necessarily on the ground planted? I don't know. But that was we'll just say shaky. But what happens after that is really good too. He finds Jota then plays it back. Makes a run upfield, gets it into the space where Roslov is supposed to be. Roslov is hurt, so Roslov is not there. Then Jota picks out Sloboshlai, and there's Dominique. I feel like he mishits the shot, and then it falls to Nunez's path. He has a really good job to collect this, and then he puts it away. If not, it's an unreal pass by Sloboshy, and maybe I'll give him credit here. Why not? But it's chopped off for an offsides call. It is so close. I don't agree with that. And then Liverpool scored again. This one was clear cut. This was like he was like 5 yards offside, but it's a bike. So I wanted it to count. But this happens first. I think it's a Liverpool corner kick, and Virgil van Dijk wins it, and it's a great save by Flecken. Because this probably should have gone in just on the Van Dijk hit. Uh, but it didn't. And then really the chance of the game for Brentford came with Mbeumo. It's 32nd minute in the game, still 0-0 kind of game. It's off a Liverpool corner kick, so this is kind of annoying. This is the second week in a row because this is how Luton Town scored their goal. Here, I think it's Jensen Denson gets onto a free ball, and he sees Mbeumo completely open. I think it's just him and Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Arnold isn't able to get there in time. Arnold actually gets a little lucky by getting a little of the shirt pull, and it's a 1v1 with Mbeumo, and he, instead of trying to chip him or instead of trying to do anything that he does, it's kind of a weak hit, and it's basically hand height, and Allison's big, and it hits his hand, and then Alexander-Arnold's able to clear it at the very end. This could have gone in though, and then we do get the first goal, and it is Salah. And this is a fantastic setup by Nunez to collect the ball, and then he feeds it to Salah to pass it in the corner. So here, Liverpool win the ball high upfield off Wisa. Matip does really well to step in high, and then Slobosly spins on the ball, collects it, and if I is able to find Trent's feet. And Alexander-Arnold has a wonderful forward pass upfield to pick out Darwin Núñez. And then, he collects it and has a cheeky pass to Salah on his right. And then, Salah collects it with his first touch and then passes it into the corner with his left foot. This is such a good play, though, by Darwin Núñez. One that I don't think he would have made last season. So that just speaks to his overall improvement. It's just wonderful first touch to collect this. It's Firmino-like. And the goal doesn't happen without the wonderful pickout by Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. And I did have a note here that I like the understanding that I was seeing from Jota and Gakpo on the left sides. Jota was sometimes drop deep, and Gakpo was going ahead of him, and vice versa was happening. They seem to have a pretty good understanding of each other, and there wasn't really a time when I thought Tsimikas was being overrun by Brentford being able to have a few attacks and have some overloads. Because that sometimes happens when Klopp plays against a team playing with a back five. That happened with Toulouse. It didn't happen in this game. And both Jota and Gakpo were doing the defensive work to help out Tsimikas in those moments. So I like this. I like this a lot. I also liked what Gakpo offered on the ball, which I'll get to later. And then there was a chance for Salah. It's really a chance for Nunes. No, it's a chance for Salah. Nunes wins the ball, carries it upfield. After they recycle possession, it gets it to Trent, and Trent floats a really good ball to the back post, and Salah balloons the effort, unfortunately. It's his right foot, so that's what it is. He hates his right foot. At least he's using it. You can say that, but maybe we could have done better. And then Nunes looked like he was on a break, and Ayer does really well, or Collins or Ben Mee does really well to get back and gets the slide just in time because it looked like Nunes was even in on goal. Uh, Liverpool had 10 shots and 6 on target just for the first half. And Brentford did have a couple moments here. They were able to force that Allison save, but they were really on the back foot. And then they have the Endo slide challenge, which I've spoke about, happened in the 56 minutes, so it was just at 1-0 at this point. And then there was a great block by Matip. Brentford were starting to put a little pressure on, so it was good when they got Liverpool were able to get the second goal, and they get it with Salah. And this is more just switching off. This is misfortune a little bit for Brentford's sake, but it's good play by Liverpool again. So what happens here is this comes from a good connection from Gakpo and Jota that I spoke about. Gakpo has the ball, looks like he's surrounded by 2 Brentford players, and he's almost able to just find a way to spread this in between them to find Jota, pick out Jota. And then Jota then plays a forward ball as well, and he's either looking for Gakpo or Tsimikas. I think he's looking for Gakpo. But Tsimikas is in the area, and he's able to get to this ball. It looks like he's overhit, but he's able to get to the ball before it goes out of bounds, and he's able to flick it over the goal and find Salah waiting for the back post. Unmarked and quite an easy finish. Brentford completely slept on this. Roslov is maybe he thinks it's gone out of bounds. The keeper is completely out of the area. I mean, it's an open goal. And that probably did kill the game. I mean, there was a chance for Weiser, but other than that, Matip and Virgil were winning pretty much any single ball in the air, and I thought it was such a change from last April when Tony kind of manhandled Virgil van Dijk. I remember that being kind of the storyline. And then they were able to get the third, and what a goal this was by Jota. Jota scored a banger in the midweek as well. But before this, it's a really good link up between Salah, Szoboszlai, and Trent in the build-up. Trent, gets the ball from Salah and crosses it into the box later. Gakpo does well to just win it, but then the rebound falls Jota, and Jota tries to volley it home. That's blocked, but Liverpool get able to keep possession, and thanks to Tsimikas. And then, he is able to play it back to Jota, and then Jota dips the shoulder and, has a touch to get away from Onyeka, and it creates a little space to get a shot off and curling towards goal and fires in a beauty with his left foot. I don't even know if that's his stronger foot, to be honest. It seems like he's 2-footed. What a goal this was. And that 3-0 that killed the game. And Tsimikas, to his credit, had a better game. He had the air versus Luiz. It's been, he Schlopp didn't play him versus Letton Town. You were wondering, well, this miss for Robinson is kind of starting to show up a little bit. So it's good for him to have his confidence, at least, and he played well. But again, I didn't know what to expect this game coming in. No Curtis Jones, Gravenberch, no McAllister. Thought they came into this kind of weak. I mean, Brentford have injuries left and right as well, as everyone knows. I thought the interesting thing was, though, is I probably would have been worried about Gakpo, and Gakpo was the only one that won some ground duels. He did play well. 17 shots and 10 on target. Brentford had 16 shots, but only 3 on target. 3 big chances for Liverpool, just 2 for Brentford. I mean, two though. 8 Flecken saves. Flecken didn't necessarily have a bad game. So that's good for Brentford as well. That's been kind of a talk for them. I do want to talk a little bit about Darwin Núñez. So Liverpool's shots per game increased tenfold when he plays. But it's not just his goals. His pressing has become elite. His overall link-up ability is so much different than last season. I think I've said it before, and the way he's able to collect the ball, pass it to teammates, the way he has his head up now receiving the ball, the close touch he has collecting it, and dribbling in tight areas, it is a different player than we saw last season. And it is really great because, Núñez has that pace and willingness to make these runs to the box, and that allows Salah to drop a little deeper. Salah doesn't have to make nearly as many sprints as he did last season. And Salah and Núñez have started to develop a pretty good chemistry, to playing, one-touch passing with each other. And fans were having fun with his misses versus Luton, but he's still in position to create these chances every single game. And again, every single game Liverpool he features in, Liverpool have like 18 plus shots a game, and it's significantly lower when he's not. And then Diego Jota. Diego Jota it seems like he's scoring every game now, whether he starts or not. And just a great goal this was. He had a great dribble and score in the midweek as well. And then Salah, Salah scores or assists in every single game he plays in. That is not an exaggeration. And he's always making the right runs into the box, and he's unbelievable strong holding the ball. But there's been a lot of talk. This is a little bit what I mentioned before, but there's a lot of talk about Salah having a different role that people have heard about. Uh, and they've tried to change his role from being the guy that you just go long to being quote unquote a creator, more on the wing. And in the past, he's had Firmino or maybe one year that was Mane that they tried instead. And those players will always be behind Salah when he'd get the ball. And so Salah would have to take on basically a fullback, or if it was a back five, you take on the wing back and the fullback, or the wing back and the third center back, or even if it's a back four. It seems like they're able to they've always able to put two on Salah. You can't do that now with Holland. I mean with Darwin Nunes. Darwin Nunes is basically his Holland, someone that's always breaking his neck to make that run to be even with Salah, to play with. If Salah could spalt deeper, he's got Nunes making a run in front of him that he can play make with. He's got Nunes making a run that's always going to drag a defender off Salah every single time. And it is created an entirely different dynamic of how you can play Salah, how you can play this entire Liverpool team. Uh, and in possession it is a different team than last season. And again, I think another reason why Nunes is having more fun this season is the playmaking in the team is everywhere in the squad. Every player has the ability to look up and play a line splitting pass if it's on. Every player is gifted in that respect. Even the back line. It just I put out in the notes so you don't have donkeys on the ball, not to call out names. Uh, and where the only idea was to just kind of boot it away. Maybe just float something to a 50-50 where you have to force someone to sprint. No, they were able to have way more control of the ball, and they're able to pick their moments when they want to do that. And it is much better. And just the only issue again is the lack of a six. And Indo is not working out, and that is a worry. They do have a kid, Stefan Bacic. He's a kid though, 19. He's not 18 now, 19, but he's been hurt this season. And then maybe the idea is Thiago when he returns. I've seen the idea of maybe it's Trent. That would be weird. But they've been trying to play him a little bit more in that central area, more and more. So maybe that is the idea. I can't say. Otherwise, I wanted it addressed last summer. I tried to sign Caicedo and Lavia. Selling Fabinho and not replacing him was not the right call, to say the least. And they're weak at stopping transitions and winning duels in that area. Uh, Either as a single pivot holder, it's not working, and just sometimes they've tried McAllister and Trent. They've tried. That's what they've been doing. They've been basically playing two in kind of a pivot. It's like a back three with the two. Uh, McAllister has struggled in that. Endo has really struggled with that. So I don't know what the idea is there. But there is a chance to address it in January, and I want them to. I know there have been links to this guy Andre that plays for Fluminense. Uh, he's not a physical beast. I think he's like 5'9", kind of similar to Thiago. But apparently he's one of the best dual winners, at least in the Brazilian league, and he is starting to get Brazilian national call ups. So maybe the idea is him. That could be a risk as well. I'm not necessarily against trying Paulinho. If they want to try to do that. Now he'll be super expensive and he's 28, 29 years old. So maybe that isn't the best idea. They really messed up not getting Casado or Lavia. Uh, but I do fear that that is my fear. My fear is they have a fantastic season and they come up just short because of that. That is the one weakness. You look at this team where it is there. Um, and let's see. I mean, with Gakpo, I would like to maybe see him with midfield, but Gravenbercher, Curtis Jones will always be options as well. Uh, the interesting thing though was you look at the games when he played in midfield. It was that Chelsea game. you didn't have Darwin Núñez. Darwin Núñez didn't start that game. It was Jota. Uh, the interesting thing is when Liverpool's worst games are games Gakpo started over over Núñez. If you think back, it was Chelsea, Spurs, and Newcastle. For some reason, Darwin Núñez didn't start any of those games. So that's been interesting. And Diaz been the hero. He was a hero versus Nottingham, a hero versus Nottingham For is that Forest? Hero versus Everton, hero versus Luton Town. But I think Jota offers a little bit more of a goal threat, to be honest. And looking with Man City, the only negative I think I'll say here is it looks like Konate is maybe picked up a little something, and it might be Matip and Virgil van Dijk versus Holland. That would worry me. Konate has been really, really important in the early part of the season. Virgil van Dijk has looked better back to himself because I think he's had some help with Konate. I would a little bit worry about that. Another thing too is if he's fit, I kind of expect Curtis Jones to start for Man City, just because of the pressing ability that he offers. He's one of the best counter pressers in the squad, all of a sudden, and it's most of the big games that have come, Klopp started him when he's been fit, and he unlucky to lose him versus Tottenham. So that could maybe be something we see. He's not necessarily as gifted offensively as Gakpo, in my opinion, but just for City, you need to find a way to win the ball off them. So that could be something we see. And then with Brentford, I do think it was maybe a mistake to not try with Maupay, but and Frank did have that gripe with Endo, but Brentford have found a way to after suffering a little bit in the beginning of the season, found a way to repick some form, and I think they're going to be fine. And then we'll move on to Aston Villa and Fulham. And Villa go on to win 3-1. They rebound after losing to Nottingham Forest and rebound well. 3-1. It was a comfortable 3-1 even. Robinson with an own goal, then John McGinn with a fantastic goal. John McGinn was maybe player of the game. Then Watkins got the third, and then Jimenez was able to make it a 3-1. Robinson actually played a role in that as well, so that was good to see him rebound a little bit. And Fulham, it has to be kicking themselves because I thought they maybe played the best game of the season last week versus Man United, and they couldn't come away with anything. Um, and then with Aston Villa, Villa did had that surprising defeat last week, and it seems Unai Emery has maybe blamed a player for that, because Zanello started that game and was hooked at halftime, and here we saw Tielemans played instead, and Tielemans had a really, really good game as well. So we might not be seeing Zanello for a little bit because Tielemans was at the heart for I think their first goal. Tielemans offered a little more off the ball work than I think I'd seen from him at Leicester, and Tielemans has been playing well. He's been playing some minutes in the Conference League, and they've been flying in the Conference League, and it seems he's been rewarded a little bit from that. And again, Aston Villa has just been flying left and right, and it continued in this game. I mean that Diaby and Watkins, that's such a good partnership for the two. The Kamara, Louise, McGinn, midfield three. You've got a little good mix of everything there. McGinn, I used to think was more of a workhorse kind of guy. He's always had a thunderbolt kind of power shot in him, but he's created he's found a way to get himself a little more creation, a little more patience. He's got some tempo to his game. There was a couple times when he's looking to receive the ball and he does a nice little a shoulder fake. He does a nice little feint to get Paulinho to go one way and to spin around him. He was doing that. He was collecting the ball in tight spaces. He looks a different player. I put that down to maybe Emery's coaching, to be honest. And you got that, and then Tillman's always has had that eye for a pass. And you look at runners everywhere in this team. Douglas Luiz will make some runs when he knows Kamara is there to kind of help out. Stay and hold. There's a lot of ways for this team to attack, and if they do play a high line, you can get over it. That's how Fulham did get their one goal with Robinson getting free, and then it's just an easy square pass for Jimenez. But they look quite good, and it's not by accident that they are where they are in the table. And the only thing is, can they withstand this? Because unlike some other teams, they do have Europe. They do have Europe travel, and Watkins and Bailey or Diaby are playing in some of that. Is that finally going to get to the legs? If something happens to Watkins, they don't have a number 6 or they don't have a number 10, or no, they don't have a number 9. Other than him, I don't think Diaby is that kind of player. They do have that John Duran guy, but other than that, I think that's really it. So, because they sold Cam Archer, so that would be kind of the only thing. They've already withstand a number of injury issues to get yeah, to withstand, essentially. Imran Brindia, and then Tyron Mings. So they've already had to deal with some of that. If anything else happened, I do think they don't have the squad deep enough to do that. Anything happens to Kamara or Louise, likewise. But that's just kind of going into the unknowns, the abstracts. There's no need to do that. No need to talk down this team. This team's good, and they're going to have a chance to show how good they are because they have Man City and Spurs. I think for the next 2 games. Um, and then Fulham unlucky. Rodrigo Nunez wasn't able to play. I think he picked up a knee injury again. So Jimenez back into the squad, and didn't necessarily work out. He did score, but he didn't necessarily have his best game. And then unfortunately with Fulham, uh, s- weirdly enough, I think it was Paulina's maybe worst game. Again, John McGinn kind of got the better of him, but Calvin Bassey and Tim Ream, that partnership's not working out. And then Diop and Tim Ream wasn't really working out either. And I'm hoping it's not because of Tim Ream, but it's for something else. This back line isn't necessarily working. And to me, it's got good fullbacks. So it's got Castagna, it's got Robinson, but Castagna and Robinson can't really bomb forward and be offensive minded because of because of the slow center backs, in my opinion. Bassey's not necessarily slow, but he's playing on a side that he's not. He's playing on the right, or he's playing right. He's playing on the right, and he apparently doesn't have a right foot. It's his wrong foot, and it is giving issues everywhere. He keeps giving away the ball. So that is kind of the problem that Fulham's having. I mean, the early first chance of Fulham. I mean, Villa really jumped out. So the fourth minute, I've got a Diaby with a chance. Just look at Digna free on the wing, plays in Tielemans, and then Digna, gets the ball back and sends it across into the box. And Diaby 1v1, but can only draw a save. But I love what's happening here, though. Before Digna gets the ball, Kamara has it, and Fulham are laying off him. And then he feeds in a slightly risky pass to John McGinn with Polina supposedly all over him. And McGinn fools Polina by shielding the ball and then does a nice little drop of the shoulder at collecting it. And it turns away from pressure and then finds Digna open on the other wing. And really good by McGinn here. And then in the 6th minute, Watkins has a shot. Kamara then first passes it to Watkins and he floats the ball to Diaby. And then Diaby, first times it into the box to Watkins. And then Watkins connects and draws Castagna's hand. But after that, VAR calls it VAR looked at it, so the PK was called, and then they reversed it. So it was a good start for Villa, and it really didn't matter because they were able to make that good start lead to a lead. And so Aston Villa do score with Robinson with the own goal, and here Castagna gets suckered in by Digna just running towards the ball. So Castagna is the fullback, and he gets suckered, running upfield. And so what happens is Yuri Tielemans makes a run up the channel where that space is left. Douglas Luiz plays him in, and then Tielemans has a great cross that gives the keeper just hell. And it's one of those nightmare balls that defenders and keepers hate. Diaby makes a really good run to the ball, and I think basically the keeper loses track of it, and it just kind of it bounces off Robinson's knee, spreading back. Just unfortunate, but again, defenders seem to hate this kind of pass when the ball's being run and defenders are running backwards to get to it, especially when the goal is right there. So dangerous ball, great ball in by Tielemans, and great run by Tielemans. And again, the run was able to happen because Castagna, the fullback, had been suckered in by Digna in the position that he was in. So a little sleight of hand, essentially, but by Villa and good here. And then they get the second one with John McGinn. And again, I already spoke about him a little bit before this, but the improvement here is unreal. So he does well to first collect a ball. It's kind of a 50-50 ball that it flies to him, and collects it, and then kind of fakes a shot. He draws Polina to go to the ground, and then powers one in from top of the box and scores. And again, he's got a calmness and tempo to his game that I didn't see under Gerrard or Dean Smith. He always had the work rate, but I didn't feel like he had like the best first touch either, and he's showing all of that now. And then there was a chance for Watkins, missed a header from point blank range. That happens later. So So that was pretty much it. The halftime, it was relatively calm game, and then Fulham finally, woke up a little bit. Jimenez struck the post, unlucky. It's good play though. Good play by Iwobi, who had come in, playing a little bit more advanced in the second half, makes a run to the ball, does well to get past Pau Torres and Kanza, and Jimenez, takes it off him and does well to get the shot, gets good power on it. Martinez gets a finger though on the ball, and it does just enough to push it onto the post. But at least it woke them up. At least they started to do something. But it didn't really lead to much because Villa were able to get the third. It's never good to concede on your own corner kick, as we've mentioned, and then Fulham just have looked like they had a little bit of life, and then this killed the game. And it sucks too because Anthony Robinson makes a mistake. It's a costly error here, losing the ball when he shouldn't. And Fulham have all their defenders high upfield because it's their own corner kick. Villa had the break on, and Diaby plays in John McGinn, but John McGinn doesn't have the pace to actually run and make it 1v1 with the keeper, so he holds on to the ball. He's showing good patience here. And then he kind of just, manipulates the ball a little bit and plays a lovely little slip pass to find Leon Bailey running in behind the box. And then Bailey fires in a hard cross across the goal and finds Watkins for the easy put away. It's disastrous by Fulham, but it's very good by Villa. Just the patience by John McGinn and the well-timed run by Watkins and Diaby. All of this was really good by Villa. And then Fulham were able to get that one with a Jimenez. Again, unfortunate for Robinson because he just had a hard game before this point. But he was finally able to, get Villa get caught playing a high line and just ball over the top. No ball pressure here, and uh, finally able to time something right. And Robinson was able to get it and squares it to Jimenez, and Jimenez puts it away. So good for Aston Villa to be back on winning ways, and they haven't. It is interesting. They haven't had the Europe troubles yet that Newcastle, Brighton, Man United, and West Ham, you can say, have had. And it's not really like the squad is that deep either. So I don't know if it's about to come or not. Maybe they're just playing a certain different way. Four big chances for Villa. I mean, they're blowing teams away in a lot of these respects. Now they didn't have a lot of shots, only 12 shots and six on target. But when you get a early 3 goal lead, you don't really have to pepper a team. The game's already won, so I don't really look much into that. 277 passes, 76%. That could be a little bit higher. But they're flying, and there's no reason to knock them. They're the number one scoring team in the league, and Unai Emery's side that's been considered a side that's been pragmatic. Before he came here, Arsenal fans would have just said they hated him. They hated the football that they played under him. And you look back, the bad season that they had with Unai Emery, I think they finished fifth, and he got them a Europa final. I think they lost to Chelsea in the final, or maybe even Havertz and Giroud. I think it was Giroud that had a hat trick. But it's not like I feel like that needs to be relooked at a little bit. He wasn't as bad as they've said he was. He wasn't Arsene Wenger. That basically is the issue. He spoke Spanish. He didn't speak English. Maybe that was kind of maybe there was a little bit some of that. But if a job opened up at a big club, his name would be mentioned immediately, in my opinion. So clearly he's found a way to win people over, and why not? He's got his Aston Villa team absolutely flying. Um, player spoke about John McGinn a little bit. They don't need to speak about Watkins. Watkins just keeps scoring and making those runs. He's a handful for any back line. I want to touch on Douglas Luiz. I've also spoken about Kamara in games before, but Douglas Luiz playing as the number quote and six. He has things to do because of what Kamara does, but there's a weird alternate timeline here where it looks like Luiz was going to run his contract down and teams had a shot at him. And I remember him being heavily linked to Arsenal, and instead he re-signed an extension, and that to me I think is the moment this whole like Emery Villa experiment changed into something more than what we thought back then, and it is what it is here. He's so integral to how they play, uh, how they build possession, how they play through teams pressing them. And he's the head of that three-man midfield in McGinn, Kamara, and him. And it's one of the more balanced ones in the league. It is a big reason why they have the success that they've had. He's so good in possession, and he's very good out of it. And then with Tillmans isn't your usual starter, but the way he performed, maybe he should be. I don't know if he can necessarily continue this kind of for him because he's being asked to do more running than he did at Leicester, but it seems like he can do it. Maybe Leicester's coach, maybe Rodgers wasn't asking him to do this. I don't know because he was playing on the wing. That requires a little bit of pace. So yeah, this is well, maybe I shouldn't say that because the way that they were able to get the fullbacks or the Digna on one side, Cash on the other, that allows everyone to that's where you get the width from. So that allows everyone else to play a little bit more narrow, anyways. So there is some of that, but I mean, this is a team that after that 5-0 that 5-1 game to Newcastle, that feels like 2 seasons ago. Um, they're only 3 points off Liverpool and Arsenal, and again, can they keep this up? I don't know if they can. I don't need to downplay it now. And the high line I used to think was a detriment. Now I think it actually is needed. I mean, Fulham did get the one goal to at least show for it, but they are able to. It is so integral to how they play. They're thumping teams, and they're thumping teams because they have numbers high upfield. They win loose balls, and they have options in the box, and they attack directly, and they attack in numbers. So the trade off seems to be worth it, in my opinion. You have when you don't have ball pressure, sure, a team can play something over the top. Emre Martinez is also a good sweeper keeper. So I don't know. I mean, Fulham went into a buzzsaw. So I mean, Villa were pressing them from the go. Fulham couldn't handle it. Villa found gaps in the defense and exploited it. So there's not a ton to say for Fulham. Um, and it is unfortunate, but because it did feel like they maybe had their best game before this one versus Man United. And they didn't get anything. But yeah, it's weirdly enough, it's going to be good for them to stay up. But at the same time, because of how poor the promoted sides are, I don't think it's going to be an issue. Another thing too is this is maybe the worst game Pauline has played for them, and that's that's a good thing because it doesn't happen often. You don't expect it to happen much again, and it's also Aston Villa, which is a better team at the moment than them. And then I'll move on to Arsenal and Burnley and see how we're doing for time. And you probably need to speed this up. Uh, Arsenal do go on to win. I definitely do. Arsenal do go on to win 3-0. Is that right? 3-1. 3-1. With Trossard, Saliba, and then Brownhill, or Trossard, then Brownhill made it 1-1. And then Saliba, Burnley couldn't defend a corner kick. And then Zinchenko with a wonderful, wonderful goal. And then right when things were starting to be fun for Arsenal fans, Fabio Vieira was sent off. And again, the more we kind of see these things this season, it seems like that's the right call. We saw something similar in the Brighton game where Dahoud's not meaning to step on someone, but that's what happened here. Fabio Vieira just steps on he's going for a loose ball. He's not meaning to have his cleat, go on a player's leg, and it is what it is. He gets sent off, and that was unfortunate for him because Odegaard hasn't been playing in a lot of these games. There's been Smith Rowe has been hurt for some of these games. There's been a chance for him to maybe get some game time, and now the straight red, he's going to miss the next 3 games. So that is really unfortunate for him. Uh, with Arsenal are dealing with some injuries, but every team is. So a lot of teams are probably going to be thankful that the international break is here. Uh, no Nketiah. Nketiah apparently has a knock. Trossard had to be the striker in this game. It looks like Party has had another setback, so it looks like I think I saw they're not going to be with him till January at a minimum. They maybe even try to sell him in January. So it's going to be Jorginho or Rice, and we actually saw both in this game. So there's not a whole lot of depth anymore there. And no Ben White. Ben White apparently picked up a knock, so we saw Tomiyasu. And so this is not the high flying Arsenal team that we've been seeing, but at the same time, hey, win baby win. Just get that result and move on, and that's what they've been able to do. And with Burnley I think suffered not having Lau Foster. They didn't have a striker to play with. They tried Anduni, that didn't necessarily work. Burnley played well in the first half. It's not really like Arsenal were really flying at them, and then they couldn't defend on a corner kick. Arsenal were just absolutely any time they had a set piece, they looked dangerous, and Saliba basically scored the easiest corner kick you can imagine. And then, Zinchenko scored a wonder goal, but that came off a corner kick as well. But the interesting thing to start the game was they had like a drone camera, essentially. So that was a little different. I mean, my brother texted, he didn't like it, but I thought it was interesting. But there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about. I mean, there was a chance here in the 18th minute where Martinelli passed it backwards to Zinchenko, who floated the ball into the box first time. He's trying to pick out Havertz, and Havertz wins the header, but it flies out of bounds. And it is interesting because this is a move that they go back to in the 45th minute, so I want to highlight that. But also, it's the second week in a row where Havertz was in a great position to use a skill he's good at. He's been good at in the past, which is his head. And both times here and versus Sevilla, they were poor, weak miss hits. And you want Havertz to find a way to get going a little bit. And it seems like Arsenal are trying to do that, and it's still not happening for him. Uh, and then there was a giant chance here for Burnley, biggest chance of the game so far in the 33rd minute. So Saliba makes a mistake here. He's just trying to kind of win the ball back, but he kicks it backwards into a place where Gudmundsson is able to run onto it, and he does well to get close enough to test Raya, and it's a very good save. It's a good 1v1 save by Raya to deny him. He gets a glove down low, and he's able to block it. And then there's a chance for Trossard. It's really well done by Declan Rice to just win the ball back, and then he gets it to Havertz, and Havertz has a chance to do something, and he stalls. Arsenal eventually get a shot off. It's Trossard. Comes from distance though. But what's annoying is right as Havertz gets the ball, he's looking. He's immediately you see him looking. He's like scanning immediately, trying to find a teammate to quickly pass it away, get rid of it. The ball is a bomb, is what Xavi, the Barca coach Xavi has talked to his players about. This looks like a player that thinks the ball is a bomb. He wants to just immediate or hot potato. He wants to get rid of it. He doesn't look comfortable, and it's weird because there's a little space here to get the ball and drive. Take your cleats and go into the space. Take on a center back and try to take the shot off. It's weird. It's weird. He's so passive. I don't need to necessarily go with Havertz, but I want him to do well, and it just hasn't necessarily worked. And then they do get the goal for Trossard, and finally a breakthrough comes, and basically they're having a lot of the ball, but nothing's really happening. And then finally, Martinelli gets the ball, and he looks back, and he passes it to Zinchenko, and very similar to that earlier chance in the 18th minute, Zinchenko does the same thing. He first times the ball into the box, and it goes to Saka. Saka, basically heads it at. I don't know what Saka's trying to do here, if he's trying to go for goal or what, but he does very good to just kind of just keep the ball alive. Essentially, the ball's going to the back post, and then Trossard is very brave. He jumps onto it, scores, he's able to knock it in, and it comes at a cost because it clatters into the post. So Arsenal were able to get the first goal, and then how is the rest of the game going to go? Not what they would have wanted because Burnley were able to get one immediately in the 53rd minute to make it a tie game, and maybe a little controversy in this one as well. Koleyasu decides to take on Tomiyasu, and he does. He's working really well to just run as hard as possible to get to the byline. And in my opinion, he's nudging and fouling and pushing Tomiyasu in the process. And Tomiyasu falls to the ground. Nothing's called. And then from there, he gets to the byline. He has a good cross off. But he finds a teammate. The shot deflects, and the shot deflects into Brownmill's path. And from there, he takes a shot, and it basically deflects off an Arsenal defender to beat Raya. There's nothing Raya can do. Had this ended 1-1, I think Arteta would have spent a lot of time talking about this. Afterwards, he was all smiles, and why not? Because his team won. But I think he would have, the guy that spent all last week, basically, having his head so hot, maybe he singed a couple hairs off his head with the Newcastle one. I think this would have been something similar, but it doesn't really matter anyways in the end. I do want to touch on this. There's a chance for Martinelli because that goal kind of woke Arsenal up. So this is a good result, a good response by Arsenal. And Burnley have the ball they're trying to play through. Arsenal or Martinelli first wins the ball off of Burnley's fullback, and that's a problem because Burnley have their fullback out of position. And so what happens? Declan Rice is able to get onto a loose ball, and he sees that there's all open space because the fullback's not there anymore, and he plays it into it. And Martinelli is in front of the fullback, and Martinelli sprints, and he's able to get 1v1 with the keeper, and he draws a decent save and creates a corner kick. And lo and behold, they score on the corner kick with Saliba. And it's a great ball sent in by Trossard, but Saliba does well to at least he runs in front of Trafford, the keeper, and what he does is he's able to basically prevent Trafford from being able to just run in front of him. So Saliba does kind of well here to just kind of box the keeper out. That's not something you normally see. and then from there, it's just a really easy all he has to do is get contact on it, and he does. Arsenal have scored a number of goals this year off corner kicks, a number of important goals, if you can think back, and here's another one. And then, there was a chance for, Declan Rice to score a really nice goal. I just wanna highlight this because it's a great shot, by him. So Trossard has the ball in the box and gets it picked off him. The rebound falls to Rice, maybe 25 yards out, and, he smashes it. He puts his laces through it, and, it just misses. This would've been really good. And then Zinchenko got the 3rd, and again, it's off another corner kick, but what a great ball. I mean, what a great, hit this was. He, like, karate kicks this volley, to go in the side of the net, and what a fantastic finish. Uh, and then, the Fabio Vieira, thing happens, and then, with 10 men, Burnley were able to create a chance. Sandberg played a ball, slipped in, making a run, behind, Zinchenko. They were able to get a scary cross off, but nothing really happened from that, and then, Kiwar basically or booted, Jorginho into the head. So this could have been actually kind of disastrous. I think Jorginho was fine, but it was close. But that would have just made it 3-2 with maybe 5 minutes to go in the game. But I think with Arsenal's perspective, it's just win and move on essentially. Big That's been their MO this season, and so far it's been okay. But without Gabriel Jesus, without Nketiah, they're very without Odegaard, they're very reliant on Martinelli and Saka kind of driving their offense. Trossard scored, but he's not really the number 9. Well, I guess maybe on harsh because Trossard also scored in the midweek in the Champions League game, playing as their number 9. But he doesn't. For stronger teams, I guess I could say, he doesn't really have that hold up ability, essentially. But again, every team is struggling with injuries right now, and Arsenal are no different. And they're at least able to stick with City. They hanging on just by a couple points, and it hasn't been the best stretch for them. So they lost to West Ham in the cup game. Then they lost to Newcastle on that shaky goal. But they didn't really offer much of an attack themselves. But so I mean they were at least able to handle Sevilla in the Champions League. But I thought maybe it would be time to see kind of Thomas Partey come in, and it looks like he's expected to be out. So it's going to be a lot relying on either Rice or Jorginho. I don't really know if Rice works as this kind of number 8 in the shocker role because I think they're really missing that. Uh, it was okay here though, and so that's it. I mean, 16 shots, 6 on target, 3 big chances for Arsenal. At least you can say that's been a bit of a theme for them as well. They've been struggling to create some chances. Burnley with 8 shots and 5 on target, so about similar shots on target. But one thing with Arsenal I did want to hit on is it's very weird to see Ramsdale, this kind of saga come up because Raya had a mistake versus Newcastle essentially on that goal that everyone is obsession about with VAR kind of messing up on. If Raya had been able to punch the ball away, none of it matters, and Raya misses it. And so I think what's interesting is it. I don't necessarily know if Ramsdale and Raya can exist on the same team. Essentially, I do wonder if maybe he needs to leave, and that will help Raya and Ramsdale because goalkeeper. I thought I had was goalkeeper is not the same as any other position. Competition for that position, I don't think is great. You need to have your number one kind of set in stone. And I am kind of eating my words because I was wondering, well, why not go get Raya instead of Nick Pope? May you would have had the same issue, and Newcastle didn't necessarily do that. In fact, what's funny is De Zerbi did start doing that with and Van Heckenbottom, not Van Hecken, Van Brugge, and Jason Steele, and that kind of has backfired a little bit in their situation as well. Jason Steele's kind of taken over since then. But it's just you create a scenario where any minor mistake, it gets in their head. And, is the other guy going to be, right on my back? And that's great competition for outfield players. With a goalkeeper, I don't necessarily know if that is the case. So I think they've kind of created a problem just by themselves that didn't really need to. Now it's not. Now maybe I mean David Raya is just a better keeper. I kind of think so as well. But in some of these issues, some of these games, Raya his positioning hasn't necessarily been great, and it's hurt them. I think it hurt them versus Chelsea as well. I think it hurt them versus Newcastle. No, he's great a shot stopper in his own right. He made a fantastic save in this game, but I think that is something that is worth kind of talking about. But another thing with to speak on that Newcastle game is I thought it was like every game you talk about Newcastle versus like a big team, they've targeted Tanvern. And I didn't think Arsenal were good enough. I didn't think soccer was good enough at doing that. I thought it was maybe one of soccer's worst games. And I thought another thing too is Saka didn't have Odegaard, to overlap him with or to play with essentially. I think he's been struggling a little bit with Havertz as that number 8 instead. And Saka didn't necessarily have a great game versus Burnley, though he had a fantastic game versus Sevilla. So he was able to bounce back. But I just think I do think that's being a factor as well. That said, this was maybe one of Martinelli's better games, so it's good to get at least him going. And Zinchenko was man of the match. That kind of says how the game went. Uh, with Havertz, I want him to do well because he has a moment here without Odegaard. He's not taking it, and Smith Rowe's been out since the Sheffield game. So there's been an opening for both him and Fabio Vieira, and Vieira just got unlucky there too. But with yeah, the one thing I can say is if they can stay with City till January, they get Julian Timber back. By then, we can maybe see a little bit what Arteta has as far as his vision goes. So maybe this will look little bit different. We saw them experimenting a lot more in the summertime with Timber back. They looked great versus Barcelona. I remember in a preseason game. Preseason's preseason, but still, I do wonder if what the idea is with him. Now that said, Zinchenko just had his best game, but at the same time, Zinchenko can be got at a little bit defensively. Maybe you can play Zinchenko in midfield. Essentially, he plays in midfield. Honestly, he plays in midfield for Ukraine, so maybe that can be kind of in the cards as well. But and the other thing is, I don't necessarily know how long Gabriel Jesus is supposed to be out. They probably need to get a striker in January. I don't necessarily need to harp on that every single game week or every single podcast, but that feels kind of the case. Nketiah had that hat trick versus Sheffield, but he didn't really do well versus Newcastle, and now he's hurt. So it's not the best time for him to be hurt because there's a chance for him to get some game time and to prove himself. And yeah, being as young as he is, it's not necessarily like this is a career ending for him, but it is a little unfortunate to get a little knock here because we saw what he did for Sheffield. He probably would have been able to do the same for Burnley because of how poor they are at the back line. I mean, the defense is weak, week in and week out. One of the weaker sides in the league. And I don't really know there's much that company can do. It's unfortunate too, because I like him. I like what I hear from him in his post game. He's very He's very forthcoming. He's very honest. It seems. But yeah, it's maybe gonna come back to hurt him a little bit because he is being and some of these he's not shying away from some of the problems and every single game week it's kind of the same theme. And again, I don't really. They do have January to come around, so hopefully he can stay in as manager, and they can maybe get this fixed a little bit in January. No, Lyle Foster has hurt them as well. They haven't really had him a lot for the season. They've missed him for sickness, so it's not for injury. So that's been kind of weird. And anyways, I'll move on to Man United and Luton Town. And Man United do get one to win 1-0 with Lingard, which is not what is it Lingard? With Lindelof, and not the player that you would have expected to be the hero. And that kind of says it all, to be honest. I mean, what a wild week that they've been. But again, this was all about getting 3 points and getting out and doing it without injuries. And they were able to manage 2 out of 3, essentially, or getting to the international break still intact, I think is what I had. So they managed to get 2 out of 3, essentially, because I think they're sixth in the table. That's not terrible considering where they've been. And they're sixth in the table without getting Rashford to score. I think he has 1 goal the entire season. Hoyland hasn't scored for them in the league. He's like leading in the Champions League, funny enough. So you imagine Hoyland's eventually going to come good for them. But all of this has been not a good start to their league. Casemiro looks out maybe till January. Varane has been in and out of the season. There have been a lot of games with Maguire and Evans. Evans looks to be injured, so it's going to be Maguire and maybe Lindelof. And this has been a bag of wolf. Uh, so I don't know. It was a fitting game, to be honest, because they were able to try to change a few things. Reguilon came into the squad. that gave him pretty good width. You got Dallo, and Reguilon were at least offering a little bit more. With the as far as fullback being able to get some crosses off. They tried Rashford on the right side, and that moved Garnacho on the left. And that was the idea, I guess, was just find a way to get Garnacho on. But I think it's the detriment to Rashford, and we actually saw Garnacho have a chance to score a 1v1 opportunity, and he messed up. And the one note I had was, oh, if Rashford was kind of in the same situation, well, Rashford maybe would have done that. And we actually saw that in the second half. Rashford had a similar moment where Anthony had since come on, and he played Rashford in on goal, and Rashford had a good touch, and he had a shot that at least drew a save, but he also messed up on. So that is just kind of where Man United are. Hoyland had a number of chances to score in this game and just didn't really take it. So that is just kind of again where they are. And another thing too is they lost Christian Eriksen, it looks like, in this game. So Mason Mount had to come on. Mason Mount was played in a pivot. They had Amrabat and they didn't. They decided to use Mason Mount instead. Maybe they moved McTominay into more the kind of defender kind of player. This would work versus Luton Town. I don't think this would work with a better side. So again, this was all about, hey, get a result and then get out, because this is not necessarily working out. And again, what's kind of weird is the take I had, 45 minutes into the Copenhagen game, that had been as strong as they had looked in a while. Um, it looked like Wan-Bissaka and Rashford were having a pretty good connection on the right side. McTominay was making some good runs up the middle. They were able to find, able to get Hoyland involved. They didn't necessarily have the width issues, at least first 45 minutes, and then you lose Rashford, and then all hell break loose. So that again, that is, I'm not necessarily going to go over the entire game because not a lot happened. And Again, it was a, let's see, what did I have? Let's see. A Man United with a 2.8 XG, 15 shots, 4 on target, 4 big chances at least, but 4 missed. Luton Town did have 10 shots and 4 on target. Luton Town did have a couple opportunities, but they weren't able to really take them. One thing I will say about Luton Town is they do they they they've moved in a couple players that were not playing to start the season. So Andres Townsend is starting to get a few more minutes. Former Crystal Palace player, former Everton player. So actually an EPL kind of player essentially, and they've moved Ross Barkley back into the 11. Um, Someone that has been in the league for a while, but is not it hasn't really worked out for him the way he would have wanted. He was supposed to be kind of a star kind of player when he was at Everton before he made his move to City or Chelsea, and it hasn't really worked out. And he's older now, and he's been played a little bit more kind of in midfield, and he used to be kind of a creative kind of player, maybe off the wing, and he's more of like a number 6 kind of player, like a holder. He's got a calmness to him that at least no one else in the squad has. So I think that's helped him a little bit. He's patient on the ball when he's being pressed. He makes the right decision. He doesn't really lose it. Uh, and he does have a shot on him still. So that's pretty good. They Luton Town weren't necessarily terrible in this game, but just whenever they'd get into the final third, it was nothing. Nothing was really happening. And then I thought Morris had a good header to force a good Onana save, but Morris was doing horrible on any time when he had to make a move, make a decision, either playing a poor pass and doing a poor touch. So I thought Morris had a pretty poor game, and just Luton Town seemed kind of a lost cause. I don't necessarily want to keep repeating myself there, but it does kind of feel a little bit that way. Uh, and without Man United also lost Hoyland, or at least it looks like he was struggling a little bit with his hamstring. So maybe the international break has come just at a perfect time. Because I was surprised they didn't take him off even earlier than they did. He stayed on for after grabbing his hamstring for a little bit, which I thought was very very foolish. Uh, they are able to get 3 points here, but they've put themselves in a pretty hard stretch for the Champions League. I don't know. It's going to be hard for them to qualify. Maybe their best bet is they beat the Turkish side. Is it Besiktas? They beat the Turkish side in the next game. They maybe control their fate. And then they play a Bayern team that likely has already clinched and has nothing to play for. Maybe they don't have to play against Harry Kane. So maybe they can win that game. So maybe they do kind of control their fate, but it is rough. Hopefully, Ten Hag isn't required to necessarily qualify for Champions League, or at a minimum, he probably need to qualify for Europa just for financial purposes. So they still have a lot of work to do when the international break ends. But I mean, where to start with them? So since I last did a podcast, they were embarrassed by Newcastle's squad in the cup game, and then thoroughly outplayed versus Fulham, needing that Bruno miracle. And one thing I was wondering is why is this team so weird from manager to manager? And the only constant here is for the last decade, essentially, they've had the highest wage bill in Europe, and there's been weird scouting. They've really focused on UK talent, so Sancho, Mount, Maguire, or in this case, they gave Ten Hag complete control, and he went after his former players. So it's not. This isn't just on the manager, though. You can go at Ten Hag a little bit for only targeting his former players, but not having anyone in there to step in with a football brain, and be like, no, let's look at some advanced stats. Let's see other names available. Uh, I think that's been a big bugaboo. But it's just no matter what, no matter who they target, they bring in guys that don't run and cover distance like other teams. And it's very weird. Another thing that they've done, before that is they started looking at Real Madrid for hand-me-downs. They brought in Cristiano Ronaldo, they brought in Rafael Varane, they brought in Casemiro, already finished kind of products, and they were able to get a year. They were able to get a fantastic year out of Ronaldo. The 1 year, he scored like 18 or 19 goals in the league even, and then the next year, he petered out. Uh, they got a great year last year with Casemiro. A great last season with Varane. But just hasn't. You brought them in when they were already over 30 years old, and they can't really run. So everything is kind of catching up all at the same time, and that's a problem. And the Mason Mount thing has been weird. That hasn't worked out. So yeah, Anthony on the right hasn't really worked out. Um, I think it was interesting that one of the better players for Fulham in the Fulham game was Palestri, and we haven't really seen Palestri. We've seen Rashford try it on the right side. It seems like Ten Hag recognizes whoever they're trying on the right side isn't working. Maybe you can try Dallo. Maybe try Dallo on the right side. You have Wan Bissaka as the fullback. That's at least something. It seems like Dallo is essentially he's an attacking player anyways. He's not really a defender. Maybe you can try that. The team has been imbalanced forever. And another thing I don't really like is what is United's best 11? And I don't really like how I'm seeing Rashford and Højlund don't seem to be clicking together. And why is that? It's not really something I would have expected. Uh, it, should the idea be to try Rashford as the number 9, as a striker instead? Uh, Now that said, Højlund has scored a bunch of goals in the Champions League, so it's not like he can't score. But it's very weird how we're not seeing the player that we saw last season from Man United with Rashford. And the other thing I'm thinking about is last season he was benefiting from kind of a 6'7" giant that was almost playing as like their number 10, that was finding a way to feed Rashford. I was finding a way to take some pressure off him, and was maybe getting Rashford some better looks. And maybe I'm wondering if maybe Rashford was liking what Rankhorst was doing for them in a way that people weren't really respecting. Um, I can't say, but it's the chemistry has been off, and just in general the play styles has been off, and that's been a real problem. And then again with Luton Town, they were able to get that draw versus Liverpool to grab points for them. I don't necessarily see how this is a team that's going to get more than 20 points without some serious help or change. Um, they played Man United good. They played a team. They forced Man United to get a goal from a corner kick. You get it from a player you wouldn't have expected in Lindelof. But once Man United got the first goal, you didn't feel like Luton were ever going to be able to get back into the game, and that feels kind of that's been their theme. And then I'll move on to Newcastle and Bournemouth. And this was another surprise, but I say that kind of cheekingly because when you see the roster that Newcastle went with, it's not that big of a surprise. Another thing that's kind of funny is Eddie Howe doesn't seem to like going to Bournemouth. This is 2 games in a row, or 2 years in a row, where he's returned to the Vitality Stadium and not gotten points. So he drew last year and was able to got thumped in this game. And with Newcastle are really struggling. You get that big win versus Arsenal, but you turn around in the midweek and you weren't able to continue that form, continue that consistency, and got beaten by Dortmund. And now their Champions League hopes are actually kind of in the dumpsters a little bit. They're going to have to get a result either at PSG, which doesn't look likely. At the same time, this is a team that beat PSG quite comfortably. So I think that was a little fool's gold, but we'll have to see. So they get their second shot at Mbappe, but this time it'll be in Paris, and they still have to play AC Milan in their own backyard. So maybe St. James can get going, and it seems maybe they can but that said, they're gonna need to get healthy, because right now they're missing too many players. This is a squad without Bruno Guimaraes now. This is a squad without uh, without Callum Wilson, without Alexander Isak. It's been without Sven Botman for a lot of this. This is a squad that played Lewis Miley, a 17-year-old today or this game in midfield. It was they're trying Lewis Hall now because they were without Dan Bird, though I actually think they should stick with that. Uh, so they're missing so many players, and that really did show up. I mean, Bournemouth basically saw probably blood in the water, and really took it to them. I mean, it started off early, with the first like few minutes. Bournemouth were getting off shots from distance. They finished with 19 shots and 10 on target. Pope, I think, made 8 saves. This actually could have been a lot more than it was, because when Bournemouth had the game won with the Solanke 2 goals, uh, Patrick Kluivert, someone came on. It might have been Kluivert. Someone came on and actually had a chance to. Oh, it was Sinistera. Sinistera came on and had a chance to maybe have a hat trick or 2 goals himself. Uh, and again, the only reason why it wasn't more was because of Pope. I mean, Newcastle were just thoroughly outpressed, or thoroughly outclassed, and Bournemouth have done a good job, at least in the first half, of running at teams, taking teams on, and they've usually slowed down a little bit in the second half. This time they didn't, so that was good. That has to be something that Areola likes. And another thing too is I was worried a little bit about them because they came into this game without Alex Scott. You know, their last game he lost by 6 to, or they shipped 6 to Man City, and they lost Alex Scott, who looks like a knee injury, and he looks like they'll be without him for until January. With that starting to be a theme, a lot of these injuries that are happening now aren't short term. They're I seeing a lot of people that aren't going to be available till January. So I was wondering, are they going to be without Alex Scott a little bit? And Lewis Cook was tried. It was Lewis Cook and Ryan Christie. That partnership was actually quite good. This is a game without Philip Billing. It's worth kind of saying that. They didn't necessarily miss him here, though I do think he'd immediately return to the 11 if he got healthy. But Lewis Cook won to 8 goals versus a Newcastle side. Now again, Newcastle without kind of the names that you would expect, but they still had Longstaff, they still had Joe Linton, Joe Willock. It's not like it was a squad that couldn't win duels, but Lewis Cook held his own and created 2 chances and 3 tackles. 73% pass accuracy. It is what it is. He was going long too. But that Cook and Christie partnership wasn't bad. So that's good. That is something that Bournemouth are going to like. And another thing too is just give Solanke some chance, give him some service. He's going to put things away. Another thing I really liked with Bournemouth that's worth saying is Anthony Semenyo. I like him playing with Solanke. I think that's a good duo that we haven't necessarily seen enough. Because it seems like he's a second striker, and he's got a really good shot on him. And he gets the ball, and he's not shy with it. He'll take defenders on. He'll carry it. He'll run with it. He's got a goal threat in him as well. He's got a good shot on him. So that partnership I think has worked out pretty good for them as well. And with Newcastle, is one of those where you're playing a 17-year-old. It is what it is. Yeah, no Bruno Guimaraes, Wilson, Ishik, Botman. Again, you're missing a lot of games, and without new Nick Pope. this is a hammering. So the international break is coming at perfect time for this team, and I don't know how doesn't like coming to the Vitale Stadium, but I think it was more just a case of who he had to show up with. And then I'll move on to Crystal Palace and Everton, and this one was a giant surprise. Actually, this one and the West Ham Nottingham game were both 3-2 games, 5 goals in both of these games, and that's something you would have expected seeing this on the schedule. And, goal from Mikolenko, who's had a quite a good run of games for the last 2 games because he had the goal that I think was an own goal, but the only goal he had the shot that was the only goal that got them a draw versus Brighton last week as well. And then Eze returned for Crystal Palace, and with Crystal Palace aren't going to care about this result, they got Eze back, and Eze looked good, really good. So he had a little dribble, he was able to draw the PK. Looks like he had a dribble and drew a second PK, but that was chalked off, and he was even. I thought he was unjustly given a yellow card for that because I thought that was a foul. Uh, and then let's see, 2-1. It was Decore, and then 2-2. Edouard. It looked like Everton kind of just switched off a little bit. And the interesting thing here was Everton win the game, but Crystal Palace had 80% of the ball in the second half. That is not something that you think of Roy Hodgson's team doing. A lot of it was uh, Everton were defending with a lead. They didn't really care, but at the same time, this game, this goal happened in like the 70th minute with Edward scoring, and it happened because there was relentless pressure, and you can only defend in the box for so long before all it takes is someone to just miss a mark, someone to set off, someone to just kind of switch off, and that's what happened here. Tarkowski, switched off, and ball got behind him, and Edward had a really nice, touch and finish. And then you thought, well, that's probably going to be the game. And then Idrissa Gueye came on in the second half, and scored a great goal to make it 2-3. And not a hero you would have expected. And with this game, it was all about how you started and how you finished. Who cares about dominating 80% of the ball in the middle? And so Everton, get a big 3 points, and then the reason why I say that is because it looks like they're actually going to be punished. It looks like it's come out that they are going to be given that 12-point sanction, and so their last three since that Liverpool game, they beat West Ham, they drew Brighton, and they get a point here, and they beat someone else, and they beat Burnley. And so, look at that. That's 10 points for the last 4 games, and one of them's over Burnley, a team you're probably gonna be looking at as, a little bit of that relegation competition. That's turned out to be a 6-pointer, and with this 12-point gap, that's coming your way, man, did this, like, 4-game stretch really help them. And, before the season, had I heard that, John Dyche should not get then Everton's not really gonna sign anyone of note. They have, brought in Jack Harrison since then. Uh, but, at the start of the season, you would have heard, Everton are going to be kind of have the same team essentially that they had last season. Maybe they have Calvert Lewin back. Maybe they don't. And they're going to have a 12-point deficit at some point. I would have significantly worried about them. And now I'm not at all. Maybe I'm entirely off it. Again, I can be a little reactionary at times. But I do think they're going to be have enough. I do think a lot of going into that is because I see the promotive sides as weak as they've been in some time. I keep thinking for Burnley to bounce back because Burnley have a football identity and they play consistently week in and week out. The problem is their consistency is being bad at defense every single week in and week out. Uh, I had a couple of shows ago, I said, "Oh, maybe Burnley can find a way to kind of, get it together and, by Christmas time, be mid-table." That is not gonna happen. I can now probably say that. So, I think Everton are actually gonna be okay. I don't Sheffield has started to, get a couple of points here and there. I don't really see them as doing anything, and Luton Town, kind of the same thing. So, Everton, I'm not gonna say all 3 promoted teams are gonna, go down, but I do think Everton have enough to at least over those 3. And I think I'd say the same thing over Bournemouth. Uh, so a big at least for Everton to get these points here and there. And another thing that's come in, so Mikolenko coming into the side, if you think back to how they started the season, Ashley Young was playing on that left back. Mikolenko was either on the bench or wasn't able to go. Since Mikolenko has returned to the team, they've started to round off some of these results as well. He's been absolutely a part of this. So is Braithwaite. Braithwaite did not start the season. It was Michael Keane. It was someone else. Brathwaite come in. That Tarkowski and Brathwaite partnership hasn't been terrible, and it's helped them out as well. And then another thing too is he's put Garner into the side, and here it was Garner and Onana. Uh, and the interesting thing to see Sean Dyche do is he took off Onana um, at halftime and brought on Adrisse Guy. He didn't take off Garner. And so it's interesting. Garner has been, kind of a fullback in some of these games for him. He's been playing on the wing, he's been playing in midfield, and they're trying to playing now in the middle, and it hasn't necessarily been terrible. And McNeil and Harrison have kind of a similar ability uh to get some service out wide. So, they basically scored the first goal because Harrison has a really nice cross into the box that the Mykolenko scores. So, I think the positive thing for Everton is you win the game here, you score X amount of goals, 3 goals, and Calvert-Lewin, it did not factor in at all. So, I don't necessarily know if that's something to, be praised about or, like, kind of worry about. But at least in this case, it wasn't an issue. And then with Crystal Palace, no Decore, and I didn't think it showed up. In the 3rd goal that happened, Will Hughes is late to mark, just a guy. It's just like a 1-2 with Guy and Decore. Decore plays Guy in, who continues his run to the box. Will Hughes is just late to market, and that's a little unfortunate because I thought Will Hughes actually had a pretty good game. But Decore probably would have marked it. Decore's a little bit better defensively. Jefferson Lerma coming into the side, so that's good. Palace are getting healthy again, finally. Eze played in this game, was really good, and Olise was back. Olise is back on the bench. So Palace are finally getting a little healthy again. They missed Mitchell for a couple of these games. He's back, so so it's not the end of the world. I think with Hodgson, Palace are fine because another thing too is I can't remember them doing this. They had basically 80% of the ball in the second half. They had 8 shots and only 2 on target. That's maybe a problem. Um, you know, Edward scored a great goal, but he was about to come off because he wasn't necessarily doing enough before that. So that is maybe where they're a little weak. They don't necessarily have a striker to finish chances, but with Elisa coming in as being able to play more, the chance creation is probably going to come more for Edward as well. But 573 passes for Crystal Palace, 87% accuracy. Everton 226, 73%. Everton were not able to do anything with the ball, and yet they were able to get 3 goals with it. So I think it was more of a smash and grab, in my opinion. I do feel like the wrong team won. But it doesn't matter because it's how you start and how you finish, essentially. So that's that for that game, and then I'll move on to the Battle of the Hams with West Ham and Nottingham. And again, a 5 goal thriller, not what you would have expected with a great goal first by Paqueta, and then Awani, came in, and then Alanga made it 2-1, and then it looked like maybe Nottingham Forest thought they had the game won because I think Alanga basically took his shirt off, and the whole stadium erupted. I think they were even away at this point, and it was like the 61st minute at that time, and similar to what happened versus Luton Town when they had the 2 goal lead. Forest let up in the second half. First with Bowen, it's a free kick in by James Ward-Prowse, and then very similar, it's a free kick or it's a corner kick by, or maybe it's a free kick with that James Ward-Prowse finds Thomas Souček, and Souček had a couple of chances in this game too. So it felt like Nottingham were living on edge, and finally Souček was able to get one to count because he hit the bar, he hit the post earlier in the game. Souček basically had 2 strikes at it, and finally the third one was the charm, as they say. I don't know. This was Nottingham Forest. How were they going to bounce back after the great victory over Aston Villa? Yeah, they started off okay, but they faltered a little bit in the second half. And here it was different than what Luton Town did because it's not like Cooper made necessarily bad subs. It's not like he took off Will Bali essentially. But it was they couldn't defend. They couldn't defend. Or they couldn't handle James Ward-Prowse's free kicks essentially in his delivery. It's also not necessarily great. You don't expect Jared Bowen to beat you in the air, and that's what happened for one of the corner kicks. So little, I guess, unfortunateness there, misfortune there. And with, I think the one positive though is they got Awani back, and Awani had a good game. It'll be interesting to see what we can see with Awani, Gibbs White, and Alanga. If we can maybe see a little of that. They got Chris Wood back as well. He came on in the second half, so Nottingham Forest finally have a little more of their health back. So that'll be good for them. And then with West Ham have had like a pretty good run of stretch lately. They beat Arsenal in the cup game, gave Brentford a good contest. They were beaten a little bit by Nathan Collins, beating them on some crosses. And what's funny enough is that kind of they kind of returned the favor a little bit with James Ward-Prowse having some crosses and beating them in. Uh, let's see the stats I had was West Ham with 16 shots and 6 on target, Nottingham Forest 10 and 5, 3 big chances apiece. Passing is probably what you would expect. West Ham with the majority of the ball. Usually they don't like those kind of games, which is kind of funny. But really, I have to get started with James Ward-Prowse. I think it's weird or crazy. He hasn't had an England call up yet. He's better than Jordan Henderson at this point in time right now, in my opinion. And his delivery is spot on every single time. England aren't necessarily lighting it up when they play. They have a lot of free kicks. Southgate likes playing Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire's good in the air. I don't get why you don't try James Ward-Prowse, in my opinion. He's like Charlie Adam from the Blackpool days, but better. He's a better outfield player. He's always picking his spot, and he never has issues with his height. He doesn't hit the first defender ever. Uh, he can score on these. He's the second best free kick taker other than, like, David Beckham, at least when it comes to now, maybe Mahrez was good, better when he was playing, but he's close to, David Beckham's, record, in my opinion, or I believe. So he's not just good delivery, and it's not just from corner kicks. He's got great free kick delivery. Just, it helps them too because, West Ham don't really open teams up a whole lot in open play. They're a very big transition team, so they like to counter. And in some of these games when things are tight and they can't, they have a lot of ball. They're going against a team that also likes to play, defend, and counter. Uh, if you can draw some fouls and get James Ward-Prowse to whip in a ball in a set piece, I mean he's got something like 10 assists already because of this. I've been stunned that he hasn't been called out for England. And then again, West Ham with some pretty good results. He beat Arsenal in midweek. He lost to Brentford, but yeah, it was close. And again, it's so big to at least be able to play this way because when you can't necessarily open up a team, this kind of game that usually it frustrates a David Moyes kind of side when a team actually wants you to have more of the ball. You need to be able to attack a different way, and that's what Ward-Prowse is able to give you. Another thing too is it was interesting to see Jared Bowen played through the middle and allowed Mo Kudus to play on the left side. Um, didn't necessarily lead to any goals or anything, but I like the wrinkle. And Jared Bowen did score by it was from a corner kick, so at least you saw that. And with Nottingham Forest, one thing positive you could say is I thought it was the best game that Ibrahim Sangare has played. He's a Champions League caliber player from PSV. If you remember that, he took a risk maybe joining this team. He was quite good, and Alwani was good. And Alanga and Gibbs White were pretty good. And I like this that midfielder Dominguez, but he maybe it was a fault a little bit for the first goal, but he thought he was really good for Aston Villa. So it's not necessarily the worst week. You don't like the result, but you got that one over Aston Villa. So you can maybe look at that as kind of cancel each other out. Uh, I do think it's a little bit. They need to do a better job of seeing games out, but this is a little bit what happens when you're not good on the ball yourself. You don't have a way to kill games out by drawing teams out. You like countering the ball, but if you're not able to actually manipulate the teams to leave that space, it doesn't really matter how much you try to counter. You're going to give the ball away. And yeah, it was a missed opportunity a little bit here to just try to see the game out a little bit better. And again, they did something similar with Luton Town, and so that can maybe be a little bit of a concern. And then with Brighton and Sheffield, I will end. Oh, I guess I got two more. So Brighton do go on to draw with Sheffield. This was a very similar game in my opinion to the one that Brighton had a couple of weeks ago versus Fulham, when Brighton fully dominated the first half of the game, but they could only get more than one goal. They could not get more than one goal, and that ended up showing up. In this case, they got a red card and something that really shouldn't have happened. And then basically after that, Sheffield were able to get an overload. Matoma wasn't necessarily doing the best to come back, And, basically, they get a cross in, they square ball in, and Adam Webster has I can't really blame him, to be honest, because he's in no man's land. If he doesn't get this ball, Cameron Archer is right behind him. He has to make a play on it, and it deflects off his knee to go in the go into the go into the net. Um, but I think the interesting thing with Brighton is it's 3 draws, I think, in a row. So they keep dropping points, but when you also look at they're absolutely hampered with injuries. So no Duncan this game, no Ferguson in this game, no Balba, or Balba at least came on in the second half. Matoma was benched. So we saw Brunette, Fati, and Nduinga as the the front three. So not really a striker. Gilmore, Dahoud, and Lalana, and then Gross, Webster, Van Hecke, and Hugo Julio. Julio was played basically as the the back four. Um, and this they were all over, Sheffield, but they weren't able to necessarily, make anything count more than the other. The first goal they scored, though, was beautiful by Adingra. Nice little, play with, Bonete and Adingra. And then, Fadi looked like he was 1v1 and, at least forced a decent save from Fotheringham, but that was really all Fadi was able to do. And then, the red card happened early in the second half. I think it's, like, in the 54th minute. So you have to, lose Dahoud, who's supposed to be kind of your more, a defensive-minded, protector, essentially, and, I thought it was maybe a mistake to take Billy Gilmore off, because he's one of the players that's relatively good at keeping the ball. Maybe you can get at him a little bit physically, but at least, I thought that was a little bit of an issue. So, I mean, Sheffield did wake up after the red card. Man advantage, they were able to at least, make some of it count. But, again, it was another one of those things where, it wasn't, necessarily great. They had to have that man advantage to really do anything. They also had a chance to win the game, to be fair. Good passing combination here with McAtee able to find Cam Archer in the box, and he one times to pass back to Bogle in the box, and Bogle could just drag the shot wide. So they actually could have won the game. But I think the interesting thing with Brighton is it was maybe that game versus Everton where they only had like 7 shots in the game. That was a little bit weird. So there's been a talk that is so Fulham, Everton, and Sheffield 3 in a row that they've dropped points in. Now they've been able to beat Ajax, and so they've been able to get some good results in the Europa fixtures. But um, and another thing you could say is that there was a big moment in the game where when the game was 1-0, there was a ball crossed in that hit a Sheffield hand, and the hand is high. That could have been a PK, and you could have made it 2-0, and that probably kills the game. So Brighton maybe a little unlucky here as well. Really unlucky that the Dahoud thing even happens. I mean, Dahoud's not meaning to do it. It's the right call, but it's just misfortune. Uh, but something I've seen online here is are Brighton being found out? And I don't think it's that. I think they're struggling to replace Alexis McAllister and Casado. So they're not winning the ball back like they did last year. And another thing too is Gilmore or whoever isn't really feeding that forward ball in the middle third to find attackers like we saw last season. There was a game that happened, and it was Newcastle. Other than that, that's really been it. And speaking of the Newcastle game, that's the last time we've seen Evan Ferguson really been able to go all 90 minutes. He's been struggling with a knee issue. Apparently he had some back tightness in this game. And they went into this game without a striker, no Welbeck in this game available either. João Pedro finally came on, but it came on late. Um, so I think it's more a case of just their depth is finally starting to show up a little bit. Uh, they lost another thing too is their back line last year. They had Levy Colwell, and they're missing him in my opinion as well. So there's some of that than necessarily or Brighton being found or De Zerbi's teams being found out. Um, I think one thing you can say though is I mean they're missing Enciso, Sully Marsh. And, Matoma only came on in the second half, and when Matoma finally came on, he got 10 minutes before he had to play down a man. And Fadi isn't really a number 9, to run into channels or to run in the back shoulder. So I think it's more a case of necessarily that. I do think, teams know not to necessarily press them as high, maybe, and at least Sheffield are gonna be fine, just, kinda sit back. So maybe the Brighton aren't necessarily enjoying the kind of spaces because Everton didn't do that either. That was one of the reasons why they didn't necessarily have fun. Um, they allowed Brighton to have a lot of the ball, and struggling a little bit. Ooh, ooh, struggling something with my stomach. So what happened with the Everton game is they didn't really press them, and so Brighton had a lot of the ball, and they didn't really do anything until like basically Brighton got into like the final third or halfway line, and that's when they would finally move them. So because a lot of Brighton's action in the beginning of when they have the ball with the goalkeeper, such a lot of it's to draw teams out. So maybe teams know not necessarily to do that, but that's not the only reason why Brighton are struggling. I think it's more not having Alexis and Casado. And then with Sheffield, get a point. Maybe could have won it, but all three bottom sides are struggling. I don't think that's necessarily going to change. They do look a little bit more organized than they did versus Newcastle. This is the team that shipped in 8 not too long ago. They have. It seems like you're seeing a better understanding with say Oliver Norwood, Cam Archer, Gustav Hammer. So there's some of that. McAtee has come back into the side after being benched. He played a couple nice passes in this game at least. You did have that awful Arsenal game just a couple weeks ago, but you played Man United well. So there are two ways to kind of look at that. But again, it's not about playing well. It's not about being competitive. How are you going to find a way to get 3 points in a lot of these games? I don't really see that. So, anyways, that'll be it, and that is it for this week. And I'll be back next show to talk about what happened with USA and Trinidad and Tobago. And until then, you stay squatting and stop recording.